S item on there for the legal counsel.
Yes.
That's actually a closed meeting item.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm going to have 3 closed meeting matters.
So it really should not be 9J. It should just.
Well, you can keep it there and come out and vote on it if you want.
Okay.
But I think we need to put it in,
So we
closed
need to
meeting.
move 11 up here. Is that what we need to do?
Let's see. We don't have to necessarily do it. Just say that engagement of legal counsel will be discussed
We're live
in a
now
closed meeting.
on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a
We're on YouTube now. We're live.
over
Yeah.
Okay.
2 items for number 7 and 1 item number 8.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. The mute is off. Okay. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for September 15th, 2020. First, we will have our usual statement. Per the General Assembly's approval of the governor's amendments to the biennial budget, the governing body may now meet electronically without a quorum actually assembled in a single location and without the in-person governing body members voting on the participation of those who are remoting in. The following benchmarks for the meeting this evening have been met. First, the governor has declared a state of emergency for the current COVID-19 pandemic in accordance with Code of Virginia. Second, the declared emergency makes it impractical or potentially unsafe for the governing body to assemble in a single location, and guidance from the state and federal government support this determination. Therefore, the governing body will be meeting with various members participating electronically through GoToMeeting. Third, the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the governing body. Fourth, the governing body will make available a recording or transcript of the meeting on its website in accordance with Code of Virginia. Fifth, notice has been and will continue to be provided to the public using available methods. Lastly, we have made and will continue to make arrangements for public access through electronic means, including the ability to comment. Those participating electronically are Councilmember Miriam Machado, Councilmember Hector Sendejas, Councilmember Hasib Javed, and Vice Mayor Banks. Those participating in person, Councilmember Alana Mensing, Councilmember Donald Shoemaker is due to arrive, and Mayor Jeanette Rischel. Okay. So first we have approval of the agenda. 9H and 9I and 9J were added and already uploaded to the website. There is a closed session. City Attorney, do you want to make the citation for that?
Yeah, it's paragraph 7, 2 items under paragraph 7 and 1 item under paragraph 8. The item you have on there is 9J is actually a closed meeting item.
Okay. Not 9J is a closed meeting item. Okay.
Right. It can be brought back for a vote. It will be, if there's a vote on it. It can stay on 9J. It won't be voted on or won't be presented until after the closed meeting.
Okay, so we could potentially vote on that after the closed meeting is concluded.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Please join us in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone signed up who would like to make public comment? Or anyone who is not signed up? Do you wish to make public comment? Okay. Has anyone sent any emails or Facebook messages? So there's, okay. So seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move on to public hearing. The public hearing this evening is for the purpose of acquisition of both temporary and permanent easement for the Mosby Drive Culvert Replacement Project. I declare the public hearing open.
Great. Calvin, are you on?
Yes, sir, I'm on.
All right.
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mayor, members of council, citizens, staff, guests. The Mosby Drive Culvert Replacement Project is a project that we started designing shortly after we received funding in 2018, at the end of October 2018. Design was very well on its way. Earlier this spring, we were trying to figure out some basic ingress-egress considerations for the project when we had decided to actually move forward in a temporary direction, and then we had a massive failure of the culvert. That triggered a slight modification to the original design plans, but we were able to turn that around very quickly. It's still a precast concrete structure, but instead of a single box culvert, it's now the project design calls for two 84-inch circular culverts. Still very long life, durable material. It's approximately 244 linear feet of pipe, but in a twin barrel configuration. So it's about 122 linear feet per barrel. And again, that is the only ingress-egress that's prescribed for the subdivision. The residents are currently accessing through the back of the subdivision into the city of Manassas through Stonewall Park over a temporary access that we created the day of the incident. In order to execute the project, we need easements, both permanent and temporary. The permanent easements actually encompass the pipe and the wing walls and head walls outside of the right-of-way area that encompasses the road. The temporary easements are to allow for the construction activity, staging, placement of materials, equipment access, things of that nature. Altogether, on the east side of Mosby Drive, there's a permanent easement of 1,606 square feet. On the west side, it's much larger. You've got the extension of the pipe and the wing walls, and then there's a 24-inch storm sewer that also comes in there. So it's 3,840 square feet of permanent easement on the west side of the pipe. For the temporary construction easements, again, those are much larger to allow us for staging, work, and access. On the east side of the culvert, it's 11,987 square feet of temporary easement that's required. And then on the west side, it's 11,283 square feet of temporary easement. Again, these temporary easements will be done when the work on the project is done. The permanent easements will stay in place so that the city can forever maintain the precast structures and remove any debris that may form in that area, do any mucking of any silt that starts changing stream flows, things of that nature. We don't have a valuation currently of the easements. Normally at this point we would actually be presenting a valuation. But we've been instructed by VDOT that we need to move forward with an appraisal process. So the appraiser is working us on getting those valuations. But at this time, I'd be happy to field any questions regarding the acquisitions of the easements or any questions regarding the project.
Thank you, Calvin. We will start as usual with our folks at home. Councilmember Javed, do you have any questions or comments?
If you can come back to me, sorry, I'm just getting my notes a little late.
Okay, sure, no problem. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
The only question, just to confirm, is that we're trying to get the easement from Mosby Ridge HOA. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because I was reading through and I wanted to make sure they own all of the easement we're trying to get on both sides everywhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that your only question?
At this point, yeah.
Okay.
Is there an idea that they're going to be amenable to this? Because it seemed like, earlier in the process there was a little bit of resistance on their part and on the other part. So
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the last paragraph there that addresses eminent domain.
right. I mean, and just in terms of, do we think that they're going to be agreeable to?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I don't think they have a problem with the easements themselves. Right now, we're just working on the compensation level for it.
Okay,
So we had originally given them a number based upon assessed value because of the expediency. We're going back and doing an actual appraisal. And so once we get that appraisal out and over to them, then we'll know better if that's acceptable. But the reason we're doing this is in case all that falls apart. But right now, it's been very amenable. And
Right.
They've been very amenable and been working with us. So I don't anticipate any problems, but this is just to cover us.
Okay, well, that's good news.
And we're putting some significant
Okay.
Facilities in there. We need to make sure we have these easements.
Right. Well,
Okay.
and definitely we don't want any delay because we want this project to be done as soon as possible, particularly before winter.
Oh, they've been working,
Yeah.
Right now,
Constantly.
to my knowledge, everything is they just want to make sure they're compensated appropriately.
okay.
And then we currently are working under a right of entry form that they signed to allow the contractor to go ahead and begin construction, and progress has been very good so far. There haven't been any major delays. I think the contractor's in a comfortable place where they want to be. But we do have to acquire these permanent easements for long-term maintenance, and we do have to make whole the temporary easements because we have encumbered their property throughout the project.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to Councilmember Javed.
Councilmember Schumacher asked my question, so I got my question answered.
Okay, okay, thank you. Are there any, now that we've had governing body questions, is there any public comment, questions or comments from the public? Okay. Moving on then, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. This will be voted on later this evening under 9I. Okay, so moving on to, there's no information, recognitions. Moving on to number 7. Consent agenda consists of the approval of the minutes of September 1st, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we have no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. City website solution and Revise LLC. Good evening, Chris. How are you?
Good evening. And just quick before I start, do I have Thomas on the line from Revise? He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it, so but we can still rotate that one.
You can take it off.
Okay. All right. If he does pop on, I will hopefully can call out when he does arrive. But good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. I'm here to basically talk about the proposed revised website, which when I was talking earlier, when we got the CARES Act funding about aggressively attacking some of our projects that the city needs were also deemed as those critical infrastructure software related items, new city website was at the top of the list. And so with that, we set out on a pretty deliberate and also kind of aggressive process of finding possible vendors that could address our needs and also kind of have a good fit with the city going forward. That if you're not familiar with government websites, they aren't always usually just websites. They provide kind of ancillary services as well. So with a website, you can get like a council meeting agenda tool. You can get digital kind of like process workflow tools with it. So it's more than just kind of a straight up website. So when you think of a local government website, think of it more of like an entire software tool. So this came as a feedback from Client First. So their lead consultants have been working with us to identify a lot of our core software related needs, of which when I was reaching out to vendors, it seemed that if we went with an enterprise option, when I say enterprise, I mean multiple kind of functionalities, we were looking one that obviously had a solid government website, meaning they've had multiple other government clients, specifically in the Virginia area, so we knew that we could reach out to our fellow jurisdictions and ask them, what do you think? We wanted to make sure that they had a really solid communication, before that, with the website. We wanted to make sure they had a really good content management system, so all of that background environment that our departmental staff, who are not, including myself, really, subject matter experts when it comes to developing content on a website tool. We wanted to make sure that that was very user-friendly, so it worked for everybody. We could easily teach people, not just for who's in the city now, but for train the trainers. If we get new people coming to the city, that we could easily train them as well. So that was a big discerning factor for us. A mass outbound communications tool. Right now, Keith being kind of the citywide communications point of contact, we wanted to make sure that he had an ability to basically compartmentalize all citywide communications efforts onto one tool, so you can just do like a max blast, hit a button, and it goes to all forms of social media. And this exists, and a lot of the web options out there have this kind of tool today. And then lastly, we wanted to see what was available for having an electronic content management system. So all of those kind of fillable forms that you can fill out as a citizen, if there's interdepartmental fillable forms that we can send to each other if we're doing requests, these types of platforms have that type of functionality, so we can begin to start transitioning to a more digital type of organization overall, which helps reduce a lot of not just the bureaucracy, but also just kind of printing out a lot of paper intensive processes that are out there today. So just helps us be a little bit more agile as a city. Just to note that all of these individually, usually if you include the upfront implementation and maybe the year one of kind of maintenance costs, kind of those like service fees, would be about $70,000 in total. So we were looking at that as kind of a benchmark, and that gives us a really nice purview of understanding the value that we were getting when we were looking at our different vendors. So just doing a pretty routine assessment of reaching out to all of the Northern Virginia jurisdictions, a lot of other ones from kind of the surrounding southern jurisdictions. You really kind of came up with the top 3 providers, and this isn't just for Virginia, this is nationally. That just happens to be, the ones that kind of routinely popped up around here. And they were, if you can read them up there, Civic Plus, Granicus, and Revise. You can see the kind of cost breakdown and the differentiation between them. We can get into the reason why those disparities exist. But overall, we basically looked at it and thought, based off of fit, based off of feedback, based off of cost, that really the bottom option, Revise, was going to be the most worthwhile venture to seek for the next city option. And you can see with the 5-year savings, if you go to any other ones, it wasn't one of the other ones were really necessarily bad, they were just the best of the 3. And if you have not seen the brand new Manassas city website, that is a revised product that they just essentially rolled out. I think it was the end of last week.
I pulled it up while you were talking, just to take a look at what it will look like on the mobile.
To note, they went from Civic Plus to Revise, so that also provided another an understanding of why they did that. I had a great conversation with their procurement official, their IT department, and they gave me a lot of reasons, and if you have those questions, I can answer them, but ultimately they also thought the same thing, which was Revise was a better tool for them.
Okay.
So this is just a high-level rundown of one of the reasons that we really like them. The big thing was, and Keith can definitely attest to this, if you look at our background environment, it's not necessarily a well-linked group of pages. They're just kind of built apart each other, so it's kind of like it aggregates really easily. So we have thousands of web pages that some are latent, some are not. We just have them. Is the content relevant? We would need to have somebody come in and provide like a really good solid consulting process of what to keep, what not to keep, their expertise from a local government standpoint, and then also migrate that information as well. And that migration effort was the big part because a lot of vendors only do certain amount of page limits. We'll do 100, we'll do 150, 200. Revise was, hey, we'll do as many as you need within reason. We're not talking like 10,000 pages, but so far we don't even encroach that number. So that was really good to see. They had the easiest of all the background environments. That was really key. They're just really dynamic and flexible in that respect. I thought that was going to be really easy to be able to just sit down and just intuitively, it's like training somebody on a new app on a phone. It was just that easy. So I was really impressed and just with the interface overall.
I was able to pull up their utility billing, and I was ready to put my account number, and it was that easy. I'd never even been on their site before, and I was able to, within like, it seemed really easy.
They were really experienced with understanding the types of fillable forms. So if we can't even think about it, just interacting with them and understanding that they've seen this in so many other products and clients that they can come up with different ways that they can amend their platform, which of all the platforms, they were the most customizable to find solutions for weird little issues that pop. So it's not necessarily this is your cookie cutter. It's kind of like a really flexible tool. Their mass communications tool was kind of industry standard, I'll say. They're all pretty much kind of on the same level. So there was no drop off from there. They're not just a really solid website provider. They provide a solid communications tool. They just had a lot of like apps kind of built into it. So you're not just getting a website, you're getting a lot of like background, just kind of add-ons that you wouldn't necessarily get without paying additionally for with other vendors. And that's why you see some of those spikes in increasing costs. It's because you're paying for a lot of additions that you would need that you get kind of wholesale here. This was a great thing. These are from certain localities, everyone that I mentioned beforehand, some other cities as well, just one fee for all services. It was nice to have one vendor. The reason that you saw a lot of those rising costs with other vendors is because they are a conglomeration of multiple companies that merge together over time. So it was interesting when I sat down with Rise, I sat with one person. When I sat down with all the other groups, I sat with 5, 6 different people representing different parts of their product. That can be a real big issue when you're trying to get a quick customer service issue fixed out and you need to know who you need to go to in that moment. And you essentially have to kind of cut through their bureaucracy. I just didn't get that vibe from a lot of the other vendors that you would get that really kind of one-stop shop kind of service, which we would need.
Okay.
Is there somebody, is it like an account manager? I'm not sure if you would call them that, but I mean.
You would normally get something like that, but that account manager most of the time just shifts you to the right area that you need to go sometimes because they can't speak to it. So it's hit or miss.
Right. Okay.
And the other thing was they had really good ability to integrate with other services and software. So our payment portal, that's part of the implementation. It's already baked in. They said we can do that. It's baked into the price. You don't have to pay extra for it. When we onboard our new GIS tool, same thing. So they have a really good understanding of what it means to like truly integrate everything together. So it's not just one thing linked to another, linked to another. They think about how they actually build other things into their tool. They actually take a good amount of pride in that. So I was actually pretty impressed with them. This includes our governing body streaming as well. That'll be front and center streaming live on the front of the web front page. Same thing on a mobile app as well. So you can see they have a pretty simplistic model as far as like phase, and they show kind of itemized out where it is. And that's phase 3 and 4 is kind of the biggest one, and that's the integration. So it's all upfront cost, but the leave behind that kind of $6,000 per year, that is, I baked in about a 1.5% year over increase. That's kind of like a standard rule of thumb. But you can just see that after that year one implementation, of which we're going to be mostly floating CARES Act software funding for, the cost for long-term operations is not a substantial hit at all for us. So it's really, really manageable going forward. Because you can see that easily double, triple in some respects pretty quickly with other vendors if you ever wanted to do something additional. And you don't have to get that here. So I'll leave it off there. Unfortunately, I don't have the vendor with us on the phone to answer some more specific ones, but hopefully I can help. And I had Laszlo and Keith on each call, so that kind of helped me had something from their perspective.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just,
Thank you, Chris. That was a great presentation.
Yeah, so just three kind of additional points too. Just again to reiterate the goals for this. Number one was to allow for enhanced interaction with the public on a digital platform to reduce the amount of people that actually have to come in, whether it's vehicle registrations, building permitting, whatever services that we provide where people are coming in, we'll be able to utilize this website for that purpose. Then for some background as well, the website was really managed before by Jason Schreiner. Lana had access to it and Keith, but the departments themselves either don't have access or it's a very complex system. So making making changes is a complex process. So Friday night I had to call Keith to help walk me through how to finally get the agenda posted on there. It's just not a simple platform. The new website will make it easier for all departments to actively participate in getting information out to the public as well. And then lastly, the content or the agenda management stuff, there wasn't any of the websites that really kind of blew us away for that. You can go with a specialized company that helps you with that, but Revise made a good point that their video streaming services are not as good as YouTube. So likely the route we'll go is to what Chris was saying, was like embedding our YouTube page on the website itself. So it looks like it's coming from our website, but it's just taking advantage of YouTube. But we're not going to do a lot of the fancy stuff with the agenda stuff. There's just so much we're trying to implement right now. That's something we could look for in the future, but we didn't get to it here, and none of the websites really blew us away in terms of a solution for that.
Well, this is excellent. I can see where this would really enhance physical distancing by having residents be able to go to the website. Okay, let's start at home. Vice Mayor Banks, do you have any comments or questions?
Chris and Laszlo, thanks for your research on this and looking at our needs and comparing the different companies out there. My question is, I just paid my personal property taxes online and had some difficulty. So this will improve the processes or the steps that it takes to pay your taxes or pay your bills on the website?
Yeah, so the goal would be to essentially drive engagement by just making the interface overall easier. A lot of websites have different ways of doing that today. They'll put their front end core functional dashboard right front and center. So as soon as you log in, it's like pay and apply and this and that. And it's very intuitive. You can go in there, and then as soon as you go into that, you would have our payment portal sitting right behind there. And then that is already fixing a lot of the issues with kind of the current Keystone PayPal process. So a lot of that clicking around just randomly on the website to get to it where you think you need to go, hopefully will be diminished and be a little bit more intuitive. So the goal is always, just from a prior marketing background, to minimize clicks and minimize the ability to focus people, or excuse me, maximize the ability to focus people as they come into your website. Channeling is what they call it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's literally going to be two easy ways. Either you'll be able to click on an I want to pay a bill, or a little icon like Chris was talking about, where pay a tax, and you just click on that and it'll take you to the payment portal. Then the payment portal will streamline the process itself.
Vice Mayor Banks, do you have a follow-up?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
I want to say thank you for the work that's being done. The website was something that was a concern for our residents, and I'm happy that we're making progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Machado.
Yeah, it looks good and it's much needed. Is there intranet and extranet for employees logins, also for the public separate?
So can you repeat? Is there internet or a login for residents, you're saying?
Will this all?
So
it's breaking up.
employees to log in?
You broke up a little bit there. I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yes. Is there an intranet and extranet in this website?
Okay, so I think I know what you're referring to. So for the public,
Can you
essentially,
hear me?
is where for the public, when you log in, it'll be in those areas where you actually have to engage with something specifically. So if you are using our community development tool, which will be embedded on the website, you will go to the community development page under a apply type link and submit an application. But as far as logging in, the goal would be to only really limit citizen logins to an existing account that you have with the city. So if you have a utility account, your tax account, which you already have, you would just then apply that to our new payment portal, which we talked about in a prior session. As far as staff, this is a tool where they would essentially go to the bottom of the page and there would be like a login link, and staff would then have like access through the web page to go, and it's like a URL based kind of program for us. We don't have to worry about licenses and installing things. And they would log in and have access to whatever permissions they have to control their web content. They need to set up the forms on their side to publish, so they would have the environment that they worked in on the back end, if that makes sense.
Did that answer your question, Councilmember Machado?
Yeah, it sounds great. Also, you said besides the website, you are going to have a mobile app too, right?
Yes, we'll have a mobile application with this as well, and that's fairly industry standard, and a lot of the differences are mainly cosmetic, but we really want the functionalities to work at the highest level for our departmental staff. So I think, yeah, that's about it, other than the mobile app.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up?
And what the annual cost? Yes, what the annual cost includes?
It's $6,000, and that's all encompassing for the full website services. So right now for our website, we're paying $1,000 a year, roughly. This will increase that by $5,000, but the difference in kind of value added for both residents and employees is pretty dramatic.
And we would also pare down the police pages, the parks pages, to essentially just compartmentalize the entire city website into one platform. So that would also reduce some cost as well. I'm not off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, off the top of my head, I'm not sure how much those are right off.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Hey, good evening, Chris. What's going to happen to our current website? I mean, do we have to change our whole domain name, or can we keep it just to streamline the process?
Yes, we would more than likely change the domain name. That's pretty standard, but I think right now, as far as optimized kind of .gov or .org type site, we don't have that. I think we're .us or whatever, or .net. But yes, that would most likely change, but it would be something of the ilk of Manassas Park .gov or Manassas Park .org.
You could redirect it though after
Correct. Yeah,
the new one
that
was.
would work. I think Manassas had the same thing where they were Manassas City. I can't remember, but now they're ManassasCity.org, and they kept their same URL. So it literally depends. We'll figure that out though, and make sure that that information gets transferred to everybody by posting it on social media for everybody to log into. So
yeah, but we're going to want to shut down the old website just to avoid any confusion.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, you mentioned that this is going to be like a one-stop shop. So are we hosting emails too, or are we going to keep the same vendor for emails?
No, that's going to be still done through the Microsoft Exchange server, and we're going to be going through Office 365 and all the valuable tools that brings, including, I guess, Miriam, to one of your earlier points, kind of the SharePoint platform to serve as kind of as employee shared page as well. But that's still going to be done through Microsoft.
I see. And then the last question is, how reliable are their servers? Has there been any reports of them going down or slow connection? Does City of Manassas have any technical difficulties?
It's pretty standard for today for most software companies to kind of have dual redundancy. So they'll have two different kind of cloud warehouses. So when you go with the software as a service type company, they'll have one data center with all of one side of their data and then a second kind of supplementary one. And the same thing, so if one goes down, the other goes up. So that dual redundancy. I don't know if anybody else does more than that, but I know that's pretty standard, and they do.
Councilmember Javed, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's all I got for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
Oh, yeah. How long would this take to launch?
Overall, the phase, I'm gonna see if I can kind
So the goal is we will have a product
Yeah.
within the next couple of months, but we're gonna have to continue to build off of that before you answer. But we will have something, before the end of the calendar year per the CARES Act regulations.
Okay.
that's one thing where you have to kind of balance the implementation of just getting things in there, and then also the slow kind of build out afterwards. So it'll be somewhat of an iterative process. I want to keep them kind of on track with these phases. It just depends on how long they end up taking, because this is going to be, a pretty hefty project to go from A to B. So just working with them and doing that kind of iterative process until it's completed, and just making sure that we don't try to go too fast to get it just to rush the product. We want to make sure that when we do it right, and we'll work with everything else after the fact. But
Yeah.
I have confidence that it's something that can be done with ease, just because we're not the first. We're one of many for them. So we'll be relying on their expertise more so than not. We'll just be supplying the information.
We're not the canary in the mine.
Yes, because there's going to be certain projects that might not be done, like
Yeah.
the payment portal might be something that happens
Yeah.
after the calendar year turns, just because that's another project on a different timeline.
Mhm.
And we'll earmark the integration piece of it, and we'll already have that kind of paid for, but we'll be postponing it until that's live and ready to go, and then we'll implement that. Same thing with Dude Solutions. That's another one where it's going to go through the calendar year. When that integration's ready, we'll integrate it in the website and then release that when it's ready to go. So there's certain things that can be done prior to others.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We're writing a contract?
We are.
We
yes.
are.
Oh,
Okay.
no, this one was.
This
I
one
think,
not?
from Dean, we said we can do small procurement because I believe
Okay.
the 5-year cost doesn't meet the threshold.
Okay.
But we could have if we wanted to, because we have multiple examples for.
Would that have been less expensive or
No, it's just
no difference?
a different way from keeping the city from having to issue and go through the full RFP process.
Okay, okay.
Which is lengthy.
Yes, it is.
You can see their
Yeah.
scope of work is based off of the Isle of Wight County, Virginia, who did go through
Okay,
that process. So
right.
what we're going to get is going to be in conformance with that.
Okay,
And
thank
it's
you.
The exact, they have like an off-the-shelf kind of approach to their scope of works, and
Mhm.
Manassas is the exact same. So we could have used theirs as well.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker.
Yeah, I just, I'm glad to see we're gonna update it just because it'll have ease of use for our residents. And I think we're all looking, with the payment portal plus the website together, updating, and then it'll be a night and day kind of thing. I did want to mention that when I was on the Manassas one, it seems very easy to use even on a mobile device. But I would point out that they charge, for their utility billing, they've charged $5.95 per transaction. So, and then they charge 2.95 for their taxes. So that's interesting. Actually, ours will be less than theirs with our agreement, but it actually.
I'm not sure what service they use to process, actually. A lot of that stuff is kind of hidden behind the scenes, so you'd have to specifically ask, but.
Yeah, it's what they have. It's what they have it listed here on the site. Like that's the disclosure to their to the residences. That's what it is. But I was able to easily see this even on a mobile device. So if with Revise, if ours is as easy as this for us, then that's definitely a value added to our residents, because so much is done on mobile now. Few people are actually sitting at home at a computer. They're sitting in a car on a phone. It's
And the goal will be to hyperlink as many things as possible, to eliminate as much text as possible. You just want to get the really core information provided in a very intuitive way.
Yeah, that'd be great for our residents and for people that outsiders that want to learn about the city or pay fees, pay taxes, pay whatever.
Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I just a few comments because it seems like a really good proposal.
It's a good point too. Just to reiterate for our residents, like we've wanted to do something like this for a long time to service them. It's just we had no money to do it, and now with the CARES Act, we have the ability now to modernize our technology to better interface with our
We're
residents. So it's
very
not something
fortunate
that
to have the CARES Act
this was
funding.
on our radar before we
Yeah.
weren't financially able to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign an agreement with Revise LLC in general conformance with their scope of work, proposal, and agreements with Isle of Wight County, Virginia, utilizing small purchase procedures pursuant to City Code 2-175, pending final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you very much. That was excellent. And next, Chris, I think you're still up on CARES Act employment support.
Yes.
Okay,
So completely switching gears.
okay.
As you know, ongoing efforts with the kind of small business effort for the city for the CARES Act grant funding. Just along the way, had a good conversation as a part of our relationship with Nova EDA, having kind of more continual conversations with Christina Nguyen, who's the Economic Development Director for Prince William County, and I believe not Patrick, but Nicole Smith. She's one of the business liaisons for the city of Manassas. And they essentially brought to light the effort for this Elevate program, which was going to be essentially a kind of a skills transitioning program funded through their two jurisdictions, who came to bat with a pretty substantial investment to essentially create a very local Prince William County, Manassas, and potentially Manassas Park regional approach to helping out not just local businesses, but local workers who were kind of put out from obviously the recession caused by COVID. So as you can see, this is kind of the kind of quick background. Those are the investments. You can just see the timeline was relatively quick. So I believe it was over the summer when they actually started standing this up. A lot of the investment made by those two jurisdictions, and I do have representation from the kind of Virginia CareerWorks Northern Region and Skills Source, and I believe Dave and Seymour, both of you on? Just wanted to check. Sorry, I should have.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the goal was essentially to stand up the kind of marketing effort, put the website in place, create the portal, create kind of the advertisement part of it, and then when they started getting engagement, to be able to have funding ready to actually have people assigned to start providing those services to whatever workers were eligible to apply and both get the granted approval to proceed. So the overall Elevate program is just training programs, local training programs for local businesses, designed and put in demand by local businesses as well. And it's kind of an extension of the current existing Virginia CareerWorks program, so it's no different. Like I said, it's just hyper-localized for us here. So these are kind of the big takeaway values for how Manassas Park would really be able to tap into this program. And the one were occupational training, first and foremost. That's the one where our actual investment dollars are going to probably go to fund citizens from Manassas Park to participate. And right now, that would be 25 grand of our current CARES Act funding. And just so you know, that's 25 grand that we would provide up front, and we would put kind of a drop dead date on that by Thanksgiving time frame. And per person that applies and is eligible and actually goes to the program, they would reduce from that 25 grand until it's essentially out. And then if not enough people do it, we would reimburse it that money and it would go back into our CARES Act pool. So it's kind of a use it or provide it back to the city kind of program. The virtual hub is the one where it's more of an online base, and a lot of that investment's already been done and put into place. So that would just be an extra provided service as just like a marketed partner with Prince William County, Manassas, and of course Virginia Career Works and Skill Source, kind of just involvement with that program. These are some of the additional Elevate programs. So a lot of my questioning, talking with each group, was just not only was this for the short term, but what does this all mean long term, and what does our involvement really mean going forward as a city? So they're also seeing possibilities with basically skills transitioning for job providers, so the employers out there that want to essentially upskill their current employees. This program would fund the education to basically provide them with that continuing education in order to help float kind of internal employees for promotions within their businesses. That would come at a cost of investment from the city on behalf of the employers to be able to provide that service. And then I think that's it. Everything else out there is pretty much it. It's mostly just kind of supportive services if you need equipment, transportation assistance, you need to get from A to B just to like get to the place where you need to go. Let's say somebody doesn't have a car that's on Fritz, or they just can't afford to do something to fix it, and the upskill place is just in a different location, they would have transportation assistance. It's just like the logistics for helping people out, because you know it is an effort when you're trying to go from one reality to the other and you're trying to improve yourself, and sometimes those barriers can really be a pretty huge, substantial obstacle for people trying to do that. And I don't know if it'll work, but this is kind of the front end portal for the Elevate website. So it is a kind of an all-encompassing portal that people can utilize today. You can go on your phone and search for it. As you can see the branding up there in the right-hand corner, we would be adding Manassas Park. Dave is kind of on the line, ready to do so as soon as if this program gets approved, and I can answer any follow-up questions, but I'll leave it to the governing body.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. How are the, just to start out, how are the 10 residents chosen for
First and
participation?
foremost, it's through a marketing effort, so they have to actually funnel to the actual portal. But how they're chosen, I would leave that to Dave.
For example, if 12 apply.
Council members, I'm David Hunt with Virginia Career Works Northern. We would be reaching out, we will reach out to all residents who are currently receiving unemployment insurance through the state of Virginia, and we'll be reaching out to them through email and through mail, trying to see if anyone would want to take advantage of this. Of course, it would be word of mouth and also other marketing that would be available.
Well,
it's first come, kind of first serve as far
First
as how
come
they're chosen. So I think eligibility really only is resident of the city. And then is there any other kind of eligibility constraints, Dave?
Well, we would, the second would be they're legally able to work in the United States.
So it's first come, first serve.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
And I guess if it's drying up, then if you want to provide kind of that discretion, because we have a lot of money going for economic development, you'll see in the next agenda item for, or the, in 2 agenda items for the CARES Act budget. So if this becomes a popular program, we may either you can give us the flexibility to shift more funding from that economic development budget, or we can come back and try to get more funding for that. But this was kind of the starting point that we went
If it's
to.
successful, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's reporting back from Virginia Career Works pretty routinely when we start participating on how many people are coming in from our city, what does it look like, how are they doing, kind of we'll get some feedback from them. So it's not just going to be, here's a check and hope it's working, you know, kind of thing. So we'll get some information back to you if you have any other follow-up questions in the future.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is that 10 persons is a very limited number. So how is this going to be advertised besides Virginia Career Work contacting the unemployed Manassas Park residents? They could think that this is spam, somebody's trying to sell something. Is this going to be advertised in the city's website?
Yes, so this will be on all forms of social media, and right now Manassas and Prince William County are doing the exact same thing. I think I saw some today, and it's essentially linked through, if you're on, let's say, Twitter or Facebook or anything, you can link right into the site and it shows the job application. So the jurisdictions are doing their part as well. It's basically just trying to max blast the entire region around here and just get as many people to the table as possible.
Okay.
And Chris, if I could add, we're also adding flyers in both Spanish and that are available at our career centers in Woodbridge and also throughout the region.
Thank you. Councilmember Machado, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
So when is this going to be available?
I'll leave that to Dave, but I think when we talked, it was going to be as soon as possible. Dave?
Okay.
Oh, Dave, did you have a follow-up to that? Just when it would be available for us to be able to open it up to citizens?
Effective tomorrow if you decide tonight, yes.
So, yes.
Oh, that's fast. Councilmember Machado, do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Hey, good evening, Mr. Hunt. How are, I guess, the business community, a lot of them are downsizing, and there's a lot of layoffs, and reduced hours. Are you seeing businesses taking, I guess, folks that need jobs right now? Or is this, how are we accommodating during this pandemic period for the unemployment?
Right. Well, it is the worst labor market that I've seen in my career, council member. But we are, depending on the occupations in the industry, we are seeing some hiring, and that'll be where we're targeting in our advice, our job advice to the job seekers. Healthcare opportunities, some technology opportunities, depending on one's skills and certifications. But also, we've been seeing some reemergence of hospitality. A new Hilton hotel just opened up in the city of Manassas just within the last 2 weeks, and we helped with that hiring. So we are very, very targeted and specific, I would say as well. Commercial driving, having a CDL will be also a huge opportunity for people to move right into jobs.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
Yeah, I had a question, Mr. Hunt. My take on the current unemployment is that it is not a matter of people who do not have jobs needing to learn new skills. It's that their jobs are gone, whether temporarily or permanently, because of the pandemic. And so, I mean, can you give me an example of how someone in the hospitality industry or someone in the restaurant industry, how can they shift? I mean, they've been a bartender or a server or a customer service person for years. Their job was there, it just happened to be gone, and they don't know when it's going to return because of the lack of demand and because of COVID and all the restrictions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Banks. I'll be the first to agree with what you just outlined. And part of what Chris has outlined here is the funds would be used for skills training. So we would be looking to help that individual pivot, possibly look at a different industry or career from what they had been doing prior to the pandemic. It's an investment of time and resources, and between now and the end of December, which is when the CARES Act funds do expire. And of course, as Chris did mention, this follows very closely to how we administer the federal WIOA dollars that are available now and will continue beyond into the new calendar year, which we would hope to expand city residents utilizing that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up?
No follow-up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions. I just think that this sounds like a fantastic program, and I hope our residents actually utilize it.
Yeah, hope so too. Thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I guess I was just concerned that this might be a duplication of and I don't want to be the negative Nancy or whatever, but it just seems like with the Virginia Workforce Board that we just approved about a month or two ago, and and there's opportunities through Nova to do workforce. They have a whole workforce development division over by where the Comcast is over across from George Mason. They have a whole campus over there that just does workforce development. I'm not saying this is a bad program. It's probably great. I just wonder if it's money well spent for the number of residents that we likely will see enter it. That's just my concern, kind of when I was reading through, and I was like,
correct. I actually asked the same question myself. Is this redundant for what we already have, considering a lot of that is memorandums of understanding for no cost to the city? So I think the balance was the intrigue of the pilot program aspect of this, because you're right, 25 grand for 10 plus citizens might not be something now, but the overall investment, and Dave can back me up on this based off of our conversation, was to just build the structure, and then long term is that RIOA, I don't know how you say it in your industry, Dave, RIOA funds would essentially supplement this newly built out, but they just needed the investment to build out the core kind of program in and of itself. But it was something kind of by design to really focus in Prince William County for Prince William County businesses, and kind of associate with the chamber, associate with our business partners, associate with, you know, the Nova campus, not George Mason alone, but maybe the George Mason extension campus that's being built out continually in Manassas, and those would be our long-term partners. So it's a little now to grow it, see what the viability is, and then replace the initial funding with long-term federal funding, and now you have a more hyper-localized, well-built-out program. And you get some learnings too. You really understand what worked, what didn't work, what needs to be tweaked, what other conditional aspects of it. So I see value in that, not just in the upfront, but what it can look like down term.
So is the idea, and I appreciate everything you said, is the idea that, you know, small business and big business, you know, Micron or, you know, ABC Defense subcontractor that we may not have ever even heard of, it has a random name, it's not Lockheed, it's not the big ones, it's the smaller ones that are kind of tucked away in different spots, and they come and they say, well, we really need 2 or 3 people with this like specific set of skills. And so the goal of this long, as you say, long term, is we need 2 or 3 people that have this certification or these sets of skills or this. That's so it's going to be more employer driven in the sense that the company will come to this organization and say, we're located in Dale City and we need local people with these sets of skills. Yes?
I think that's what actually Dave addressed on the call we had last week. It was the business community needs engagement into this program too. It can't be long-term successful without them. So I know that they already have relationships, yet sometimes those businesses don't really come to the table. Hopefully this is a way to kind of revitalize that relationship and get a lot of those local businesses to do exactly what you said. Come to the table. Hey, we're looking for these categories to be filled with these types of skilled workers. What can you do to help us out to build our company up, to grow it, whatever you would need them for. But they're the third piece of this live. So
they're not getting that, or they're not doing that through the current workforce development.
I think Dave would have to address that specifically, because I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, well, Mr. Schumacher, yes, we are. We are doing that. Of course, we're all trying to dig ourselves out as we start to open up from the pandemic. But as an example, Novant Health is already committed to providing interviews for a number of any of the residents that are going through this training that are targeted around healthcare. And so you're starting to see employers step up as we reach out to them. We can also offer wage subsidies and other on-the-job training contracts that incentivize an employer to hire, and we can offset some of those costs. And that's built into the presentation that you just heard. And finally, I would say that if we don't spend the money, it will go back to the city. And so it would be reinvested in your upper CARES Act. Our goal is to make sure that residents are served during this time.
Just from a dollar-to-dollar perspective, remember for the rent utility program, mortgage support, it potentially a resident could get up to $2,000 for just support and making payments. This would be $2,500 for helping them get a job, which is a little bit more sustainable than just helping them pay one bill. So it's not too much different from kind of what we're already doing.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
And actually, my concern was not on the dollars.
Okay.
That wasn't really. I was trying to figure out what's the dynamic and do we have people, do we have people that, as Councilmember Banks was saying, lots of people in the restaurant and hospitality, like how easy is it going to be for those people to retrain for, more skilled positions that are, lack of a better word, white collar versus where they're coming from? Like, is this program going to get that group of people to that place? That's all I'm asking.
I would not make assumptions about the capabilities of service workers.
I think they're very capable, but my question is what are the positions that the businesses are looking for? And are they close enough matches with the current employees who are, like Councilmember Banks was saying, is, they've been laid off, their jobs have disappeared, restaurants closed, lots of stuff in the hospitality and the service industry stopped on March 13th. Like, are those people going to be able to
with whatever? And that's the other thing. It's just like you're getting a almost like a career management consultation provided with, okay, where do you want to go? Meets with, here's the resources. And it's not just handing them a brochure after that fact. You're then saying, okay, we'll show up to class at this time in this place. There's an accredited course that you're taking that's subsidized for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Oh, by the way, we'll drive you there. And then at the end of the by the way, we'll shake your hand to the other person looking to hand you the job. So it's that kind of entire linear process where other programs fall short constantly. I transitioned out of the military and I can speak to that in person. It's just, you never get that holistic help that you need in some of those times. So when you're trying to transition a more localized program that's customized for business needs in our area, maybe tangentially around Prince William County, I think there's some really solid kind of capability for being a pretty long-term successful program.
Okay.
Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I would. Absolutely. And really, as we move forward with the city of Manassas and also with the county, Prince William County, we really wanted to make sure city of Manassas Park residents were afforded the same access to the service.
Mm-hmm. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Do you have any follow-up?
No, I just, and I don't want, I'm supportive. I just want to make sure that it's something that can be sustainable long-term and it's going to be effective at what we're attempting to do.
Well, there's no guarantees for anything in life, but we try. We have an obligation to try. I just have one quick question. On page 2, training programs, support services, and career assistance, are all 3 of those included in the $25,000?
You say page 2, just so I can go to the right spot. Is it in the slide? Or
Background, the previous, yes. No.
Oh, you're in the background. Okay. I'm looking at what you're talking about. Gotcha.
Chris, may I answer that for you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and fill in the gap here.
So, Madam Mayor, generally we would aim to try to cover all of those costs within the $2,500 on average. It depends, of course, on the training that if it's selected as well. And generally, supported services are going to be only needed if someone needs tools or clothing or equipment to move into a specific job. So yes, we would try to keep everything together within that $2,500 amount, or if necessary, go slightly above.
Okay, thank you for mentioning the type of support service. That was my next question. So you're saying, for example, clothing or tools for a particular position. Okay.
Sure. Many of our job seekers, typically they might need glasses to be able to perform on the job, or anything else that would be an impediment to their employment opportunity.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Staff recommendation is that the office of the city manager, staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to allocate $25,000 in CARES Act small business grant funding to the Elevate pilot program to support workforce development for Manassas Park citizens.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Mayor, do you want to add the additional caveat to give me the flexibility if more than 10 people are using it to shift additional
Okay,
economic development funds from CARES Act to this program?
Okay, how about a second motion for that?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, so that the governing body authorizes the city manager to shift economic development funds from the CARES Act budget to the Elevate program if more than 10 residents are participating.
okay. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Abstain, I'm sorry, who was that?
That's Preston.
Okay,
And I
Vice
think he
Mayor,
abstained on the last one too.
I beg your
I
pardon?
think he abstained on the last one too.
Okay.
I did.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Banks, I didn't hear you the last time, so we'll make note of that. Ms. Connor will notate that you abstained on both, okay, 9B and 9C, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No, it was just 9B. Just 9B.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but there was two motions in 9B.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. 9B, did I confuse you, Lena?
No,
Okay,
when she said that, you said 1 and 2, so that makes sense.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay. And moving on to 9C, CARES Act Election Fund Procurement Ratification.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. Good news is that the registrar did receive some additional support from the state from CARES Act money for the upcoming presidential elections of about $52,000, and she's moving quickly to get ready for the elections. So there was the invoice that exceeded my $10,000 limits. So I called the mayor to get approval to go ahead and sign that and then notify the governing body that we did that. Before you today is just the motion to go ahead and ratify that purchase, then to grant me authority to continue to make those approvals going forward, and then to make the necessary appropriations and budget amendment for the FY21 budget changes that are required for receiving this. And you'll see this $52,000 in the appropriations for Q2 as well later in this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks, comments or questions?
None. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Machado?
No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
I had a question. It says OVO scanner. What is it the ballot scanner?
That I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but.
We can check with Patricia, and it's not just Scanner. She's buying a lot of things right now.
Right. I mean, but on this invoice,
Yeah.
that's what it says.
Yeah, we can follow up with her and get this specific.
Right. Okay. I'm just glad that we're getting federal money to actually do our upgrade for our elections. I wish the state was so generous with their money.
This is a blessing.
Yes,
Yes,
because we don't normally get this kind of money to fund these kind of activities. Usually it falls to us as a city to cover all the gaps. When we upgraded the last time, it was all city money. When we did the optical scanners, we had to pay all of that all out of pocket. So this is great. And I just wanted to mention this, I will mention it once, is that that the registrar has been working hard. I saw her well into the evening this evening. She was still here. They've been processing absentee ballots. So I just wanted to say kudos to her and her staff, because I know
Sunday and Monday night as well.
yeah, I know that she's been putting in a lot of hours. So I'm glad that we can provide for her office through the CARES Act.
Thank you. Staff recommendation is that the governing body ratify the approval of the attached invoice for $12,680 to Election Services Online LLC for election scanner equipment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain?
One abstain.
Okay.
Preston.
Vice Mayor Banks abstain. Thank you. The second motion is that the governing body authorize the city manager to approve future procurement related to the use of the $52,369 in CARES Act funding for elections.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain?
Abstention from Vice Mayor Banks. Thank you. Third motion is that the city manager incorporate this $52,369 in CARES Act funding for elections into the fiscal year 21 budget amendment and appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
One abstain.
Abstain. Vice Mayor Banks abstains. Thank you very much. It passes. Okay, moving on to CARES Act funding for Manassas Park.
All right, so tonight, both myself and then later Parks and Rec will be providing a presentation on the CARES Act, the updated FY21 CARES Act budget. So specifically, we'll go over the revenues, the total revenues for the program and the FY21 revenues, the actual expenditures now that we've closed the FY20 budget, and then the planned expenditures for FY21, and then go over the programs from a numerical standpoint, and then specifically spending more time tonight on the child care virtual learning support program from Parks and Rec, which at that point they'll get to that. You saw in the memo that I drafted, I highlighted a lot of kind of the new features. So the memo, I tried to make it as similar as to the one that I presented to you all on June 2nd, when I presented the first round one CARES Act budget that listed all the 8 programs, how we define those programs. And in this memo, I added additional kind of features to those programs, and I highlighted that. And then I also described how much we've spent year to date, not year to date, but FY20 plus through August for those programs. And you can see we've spent roughly 20% so far of the money, but we have a lot of kind of big ticket items going. So I tried to make that memo clear. You'll see, and for the motions, again, we have a few steps, approving the actual, approving a budget for the CARES Act, providing us the flexibility that we're really going to need to kind of move things around as we get closer to Thanksgiving to make sure that we do expend, because right now we're making projections on expenditures, but they may not hold out. And then just enhancing kind of just making this a part of a regular meeting thing as we get closer to Thanksgiving to keep you all informed of how we're doing. And then lastly, just updating the budget amendment and the appropriations. The next agenda item you'll see is the actual appropriations for Q2 that handles the CARES Act round 2 money as well, and then any unspent CARES Act money from FY20. That's all handled in the appropriations, along with the $52,000 that we just talked about with the registrar. So we're already updating the appropriations. Ideally, we want to do a full budget amendment before we do appropriations, but that's what essentially this is tonight. The CARES Act budget is a reason why we're making the appropriations. That's why that agenda item is following this one. So from a revenue standpoint, overall, the city's received $3 million from the federal government via the Commonwealth of Virginia for CARES Act money, specifically designed to support our COVID-19 related operations and COVID-19 recession impacts as well. But not our own revenue, but helping out businesses and others that are impacted by the recession created by the pandemic. So you can see that we carried over about $1,092,000 from that round 1 funding from FY20 into FY21. And then so you can see on the actual table there, it lists 2 funding areas. In reality, the actual money received is just that top row, the $1.5 million twice. We received the first 1.5 in June and then the second one in August. That $1,092,000 is simply just the carryover unspent of that first $1.5 million in FY20. But that's kind of what the revenue budget looks like. From expenditures in FY20, you see we were pretty close. We projected we would spend, we budgeted for $451,000 and we ended up spending $432,000. That was pretty good considering it was a very quick turnaround from the moment we found out we were going to get the money, and then we just had a month left to deal with that, so we had to quickly plan So we did pretty well with the FY20 expenditures, and we'll try to replicate that performance through the month of December to make sure that we're doing everything we can with this money to help out our residents, our businesses, and staff. You can see the major programs up there, similar to, again, this slide mirrors very closely the presentation I did on June 2nd with the programs there. Again, the largest, or the second largest, the biggest item from an expenditure standpoint, not including the businesses themselves, would be the Parks and Rec response. So utilizing them as our primary COVID-19 response team, and they're going to present a little bit later on the added service. So we're going to go back to doing the food delivery, the extra cleaning, the social distancing, line support, everything that the Parks and Rec Department was doing through the month of July until the numbers got down to a level that we felt we could reopen the community center. We reopened the community center. We haven't had a lot of patrons going to the community center, but we certainly have other requirements that need to be done, including now the child care program, which is going to be the major program that they're doing. So we're very lucky to have our Parks and Rec Department to go ahead and provide these services. But you can see the budget for FY21 would be an additional $334,000 in spending for that. I'm sorry, that was the FY20 amount that was spent, was $334,000. Now I'll go over the next slide, the FY21. For the employee support program, we spent $93,000. You can see how that broke down between the hazard pay stipend, which was the biggest component, $58,000. Again, that's only permitted for police, fire, social services, health department workers, and then any direct COVID-19 related employees. So in fiscal year 20, that was Parks and Rec. And again, because of the work they're going to be doing again in FY21, we'll be able to include Parks and Rec in that category. Then you see the paid sick leave across the city for those that tested positive or that were that were quarantined because of potential exposure and required testing as well. And then the overtime that we discussed at the last meeting. Technology enhancements, we barely spent anything in FY20, but in FY21, the month of October, November, December is when that's going to really start to skyrocket those technology expenditures because of the things that we've been approving the last few weeks that we're going to be rolling out. And then small amounts spent for PPE, and that's because we were utilizing FEMA money in FY20 for PPE starting September 1st. We're just using CARES Act money. It's a complex administrative hurdle to go through the FEMA reimbursement process, so it's a lot of extra work on staff. We have the CARES Act money, so it's much more efficient just to utilize that. Plus for the FEMA money, yeah.
Can the CARES money be used to match the FEMA?
Yeah, we can use it for our city match.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
The only problem is we just don't know the delay, right? So let's say we're submitting, if we keep using this FEMA money, we submit, and we just don't know when they're going to tell us what our match is, and it's already January, February. We don't have the CARES Act money anymore to utilize. So we want to make sure that FEMA money from September through December is a $0 impact for the city. So that's another reason. Plus, just the administrative headache for every single administrative lead in every department directors working with Keith and Pon and Tony this whole time to keep proper track of everything from a FEMA standpoint and doing the regular submissions, the reporting, and just the uncertainty of when we actually get the money as well.
Okay.
So that's why it's just more efficient from September on just to utilize CARES Act.
Thank you.
But that's why that number is so low in FY20. So in FY21, the total budget we're proposing is $2.6 million. The largest item being for economic recovery operations. You can see I went over kind of in the memo itself, what the program, how the program's been doing. I think we've gotten the majority of kind of our major restaurant establishments. There's still a couple that are still outstanding that we're going to continue to kind of re-engage, but we were able to address most of the critical kind of retail and restaurants that were directly shut down. So that was great news that they ended up participating, and we were able to provide them some support. But we want to continue to provide ongoing support as the recovery continues to lag. We're making some progress, but we're still not back at full employment. Then employee support, continuing that, so we want to do another round of hazard pay for our personnel that are eligible for that. And then what I'll recommend in the FY21 budget amendment is to do that also for our employees who don't qualify for CARES Act hazard pay, but perhaps the city could then cover those employees through our money. But the four major departments, not including Community Development Department, would qualify for hazard pay bonuses, and then the Community Development Department and our administrative team, potentially the city could look to do that in the FY21 budget amendment. Here you can see the escalating kind of overtime costs that we're seeing for police and the fire department, especially the fire department. And again, we're planning for a potential second wave coming here as it starts to get colder. So that's why we're planning to spend additional for the overtime impacts to make sure we have staff coverage if we have a lot of employees out, either being tested or who test positive. Same thing with the lodging, 14 lodging. We did some of that in FY20, so we're budgeting for some of that just in case we have to as a worst case as we get to the fall. PPE and social distancing equipment, you can see that's going up. We want to do a lot more in terms of large-scale procurement efforts to support the PPE and social distancing and building up our reserve capacity, and then even engage potentially. We had some of the free masks that we were able to deliver to restaurants and different apartments and other things. We want to continue to do that, keep helping our residents be equipped with PPE and also with cleaning supplies as well. Technology, a little ramp up in that as well, based off of everything that we're starting to do. You'll see in October is when we'll start replacing people who have desktops right now with laptops to again facilitate that greater remote work that we may need as if we get a second wave that we certainly utilized when we were in our first wave. And then the rent, mortgage, and utility support, we kept that budget flat because we just haven't seen the volume of applications, and then with the applications themselves, we've just had a lot of issues with follow-up with incomplete applications and just not a lot of follow-up. So there just hasn't been a lot dispersed. I don't want to reduce that amount because I'm hoping that we can get that issue recovered, but I don't think right now we can justify increasing it based off the demand that we've been seeing right now. But again, that's why we're going to need that flexibility in November, because if that demand starts ramping up and maybe some of these things aren't going that well, then we can shift more money for that program as well.
I have a question for you in terms of the rent, mortgage, utility, because you had said before that we hadn't gotten that many applications, and I guess I'm concerned that because right now they're not doing evictions. Yeah. People are maybe behind on rent, but because they're not facing eviction, that they're not applying because there's no, hey, you got to pay by Tuesday or the sheriff's coming out to evict you.
Sense of urgency.
Well, yeah, I mean, but yet they may be 4 months behind on rent and they need help, but because they're not being evicted, they're not reaching out. You know what I mean? Is that as you were saying, the urgency is not there, or because utilities generally are not doing very many shutoffs right now, but they're 3 months behind on electric, and then as soon as that date comes, whatever it is, then all of a sudden they're going to face a shutoff notice because they're 3, 4, 5 months behind, but they won't take advantage of this now while we have the money, and then when we don't have money, then they're facing a shutoff. They're going to end up at social services asking for help, and we won't have at that point the authority to help them.
The biggest challenge is the time constraint that the federal government provided for the CARES Act. Let's hope they can get something passed here that will ease the restrictions, because you're absolutely right. If you're designing the program correctly, you're going to end the eviction stuff much sooner than the funding expires for that. So you can have an overlap to make sure you have some funding to cover when the eviction order expires. But if we did the opposite, the funding's going to expire and then we're not going to have that money available to help those who, you're right, will be looking for potentially.
And we might end up giving money back, because we anticipate there'll be so many, they never materialize in the time that we have. And then I would feel bad, it's January and somebody's is facing a gas or an electric shutoff because now they're months behind.
So if we had control of the funds, we wouldn't touch it. We would just keep it going, and just let the economy, everything kind of pan out, and then at the end of it, if we have anything left over, then fine. But we would want to be able to, you're right, to use that, keep that going until the full economy recovers and some of these regulations subside, and then people are going to have to actually deal with
shut-offs and evictions.
Is there a way?
Unfortunately, we don't have control over that.
Yeah, is there a way for us to reach out to maybe Novec, Washington Gas, or Columbia Gas and find out if people have reached out to the utility directly instead of through us, and they're asking for, I don't know if they're asking for forbearance or a payment plan or something along those lines? Would that be possible?
Yeah, we can do that. We did that with all the departments, but again, it's like, we can only reach out so much that people have to apply. And then not just that, when they apply, if our social services department is trying to get more information to have a complete application, people need to respond. And there's not that sense of urgency right now.
Okay.
So we're just not getting complete applications to go ahead and process it.
Okay.
But we will do that. We'll certainly do that.
I was thinking maybe they'd contacted the utility directly instead of the city, in terms of social services or something.
Difficult situation.
It is.
Yeah.
And then you'll see for additional staffing, so continuing the same budget plan for the additional hours for the part-time employees at DSS to help with the additional benefit application surge from the unemployment and recession. We'll need some additional IT support staff because of all the expanded requirements now that we have for technology investments and digital platforms, everything that we're doing to allow for remote work. And for everything else, Don's team has just been overwhelmed. So there's an additional kind of requirement to be able to sustain all these technology enhancements that we're doing to allow for our expanded digital presence, and then continuing kind of the police social distancing support, especially in the fall right now that we have the long lines, being able to continue that as well to make sure that people are that we're not the city hall, the elections, all the tax bills are not the reason that we see spread in our city. So we want to continue to enforce social distancing here at City Hall. And then it's expanding cleaning operations as well, the contract that was approved at the last meeting, and then just additional supplies and following up kind of the building up our reserve capacity as well for PPE and cleaning supplies as well, when you see those waves come up if we need to expand operations. So that's what the 21 budget looks like from a summary standpoint. And here's the numbers again. If you want to see on the table what was spent in FY20, that $432,000 by program. The biggest one, of course, being the Parks and Rec. Since immediately mid-March, we started using them for COVID-19 operations. And then in FY21, again, you'll see Parks and Rec will be the second largest if the child care program is approved. And then the small business support continue to provide additional funding for our businesses. But we're going to continue to give them more time to apply for the grants themselves. But that program, we've reached the majority of businesses that really qualify. So we feel pretty good about that.
Okay. I think that's an important category, the small business support, because we don't want to lose any of our businesses.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me that that's taking a very long range rather than a short-term perspective. We have to think long-term.
Absolutely. That's what allows for sustainability.
Yeah, thank you.
If they all go down, then we're going to, residents will suffer. Everyone's going to suffer if our businesses don't survive.
Yeah.
That's why we want to continue to prioritize that to build that sustainability. Additional employee support funding again. We discussed in the last one, the technology piece, the workforce, all the items that we discussed last time. You can see how that creates the full FY21 budget. Diving deeper into the programs themselves. Programs 1 and 2, Parks and Rec. And I'll have an extra slide that you didn't see last night, but I emailed earlier tonight, just breaking down the payroll. I split the payroll into two, the actuals. So the pre-child care program, what we did actuals in the month of July for Parks and Rec, and then the budget is what we forecast to spend at the child care program is approved, and all the other different services that we have. For food purchases, we got a lot of donations, so that was really not just cash, but also food donations. So we actually didn't have to buy a lot of food. It was just the logistical piece of getting the food, identifying who needs it, and then getting it to them. That was the biggest piece that Parks and Rec had to do. So that's why you see that not a lot is spent on actual food purchase itself. We are weighing an idea if some of these other things don't pan out, potentially working with vendors for food gift cards, right, to continue to deliver that during the wintertime for our seniors, so that specifically for those that actually deliver meals as well. So when our, CARES Act money expires, at least the residents are equipped with additional support if we can't provide it for them. So that's an idea that Randy and the team, we've been discussing, but we want to wait and see how we're doing with everything else first. But again, we're going to continue that dialogue here over the next few months on how we're actually doing with these programs. The MAP clinic, we discussed that, Chief Evans discussed it, and Keith discussed that last time. And then the small business programs, you can see the actual grants, that first round, we don't expect to get to that 265. We're keeping it there just in case we get a last minute surge, but we think that's a pretty reasonable number. We have that workforce development that we just discussed right now, the Elevate program, 25,000. And then the way to really get the money out there to our businesses in a clean way, either we can just continue to provide a second round for the grants for those who've applied. We could do a mix and just do a meals tax equivalent refund grant, because we know that restaurants were shut down, so just another way to kind of help them, and then the B pool as well because of the other businesses. So we really prioritize the retail and restaurant establishments with the grant program because they were literally shut down for 2 months. So they really deserve the most help. But other businesses that were impacted by the recession or because they deliver things to restaurants and retail were scaled back as well. So that's why that B pool equivalent refund grant program to help out all of our businesses, since they've been, we're just receiving applications from the non-retail restaurant sector. They qualify for a smaller piece of grant, but their losses are pretty significant here. So we really want to help, and all the grant money that we've been issuing out pales in comparison with the actual losses of what businesses are seeing based off the application that we're receiving. So we want to continue to be able to provide more support to our businesses.
So we're only, do I take this as that, when I saw this, is that we're only providing 20% of the lost revenue that they experienced? Is that correct?
I wouldn't want, everyone is different, but it's a small number. It's not close to being the majority. Yeah.
So it's like 20 or 30 or 35?
100 potentially. Some businesses it may be less, some businesses maybe that's 100%.
But it's a portion. It might keep them afloat, but
that's the point.
That they're only, right, but they're not, I don't want anybody to get the impression that they're going to be making money off of this.
No, they're not making a profit on this at all.
Right, I just don't want the public to think that we're just, this is really just a portion of what they lost in terms of sales and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to keep them here too. I mean, if they fold, that hurts the city a lot.
Yeah. The programs 3 and 4, again, we've spoken about the rent, mortgage, and utility support, and I share the concern about January, February. So let's hope something gets passed and we have a little bit more flexibility to carry this funding over for the first few months of calendar year 2021, so we don't get that sense that we have to spend it right now. The employee support program broke that down already. Not too much to add to that one, but again, the overtime one is that we have to pay close attention to, especially the fire department. If they lose multiple employees, for quarantining or diagnosis, and they don't, if we lose some staff on admin leave, sick leave, their overtime skyrockets. So it's something we want to keep closely monitoring, and that's why we wanted to budget that amount for the overtime.
Okay.
Well, especially if it's a whole, I don't know, A, B, and C, but I mean, what do they call them, a squad or whatever. If it's like a whole 8 of them or 7 of them, that adds up very quickly.
There's a chance if it got really bad, we'd have to consolidate shifts, but that's a lot of overtime. But that's really if, again, and you saw this has happened in Washington, I believe in Loudon, where they did lose entire shifts, and then you had to really utilize that a lot of overtime. So that has a potential to really explode. So that's another one that we have to keep an eye on, but let's cross our fingers. We've been pretty fortunate in terms of the numbers for our police compliance been relatively low, so let's hope it stays that way. Programs 5 and 6, technology, again, that's the big one, the hardware components, the cybersecurity stuff, the laptops, any hardware components that are allowing our departments to continue to be able to have that socially distanced work environment, and then all the software stuff that we've been discussing the last few weeks, the Dude Solutions, the website, the different components of that, Adobe Pro, that allows online signatures for them to print out and come in and sign. So we're trying to help out our departments as best we can with these things. DSS and finance were the two that really can go 100% remote. DSS not entirely because they do have the CPS and APS employees, but there's that greater flexibility where there are at least hours that can be worked remote. So we really helped equip them with that capability. And then again, the additional COVID-19 workforce, that's the additional IT. We put in a little bit for employee support and then contract support. We kind of want to weigh out both and see what's available. Contract support likely more for the implementation of the website, this different software stuff, the employee support for all the additional help desk ticket stuff that Don has to deal with, and Connor and Ashley and the whole team here to support the city as we move more remote. And then the social distancing, PPE equipment items, and then including support that we discussed there. We want to kind of, we've been utilizing a lot of our communications, like the variable messaging boards and all those things. Those are old, they're having issues. That's how we've been getting out the messaging for our COVID-19 program. So we want to go ahead and invest in that as well and keep that capability going as well. So we want to continue to put the messaging out there, trying to get people to apply for the rent and utility program, and then letting everybody know about the different programs. You see the PPE purchase for the public, that's one that we really kind of want to do a deep dive. That's another kind of, if we have money left over in December, let's help out our residents, because we know people have been buying a bunch of these, right? They've been buying extra cleaning supplies, so we want to continue to encourage that and help people with those unplanned expenditures created by COVID-19 and help our community out. So that's what that program entails. The hazard pay, this is a reminder again of what the program looked like. It lists the departments that qualify, and then the different criteria for how much is you can accrue based off of the actual time interacting with the public or working in the office environment as well. But it is only for those 4 departments, and then ideally we try to do something similar for the non-qualifying employees as well. This slide wasn't in the presentation I emailed last night, but I emailed it earlier today for you all to look at. This is the forecasted budget by program. So the full-time staff at Parks and Rec really support all the different programs, but then you have specific part-time employees assigned to different functions to enable the different COVID-19 operations, such as the childcare, which you can see is the second, the part-time childcare is the biggest part-time expenditure item for Parks and Rec, and then we're doing some the cleaning and the food delivery support utilizing part-time employees as well. So just to note for the public that if the childcare program is approved and we go back to doing childcare program, food delivery, we'll have to shut down the community center for a lot of the basic services. There are some exceptions like the church services on the weekends and potentially some of these swimming operations if we can segregate that properly from the rest of the community center. So that is an impact from that program. And then
So the child care program is going to cost $125K.
No. That's part time is 107. So so you have to combine some percentage of that full time with the part time. So it's going to cost. It's actually in Jay's spreadsheet. I'd have to actually pull that up and do the analysis, but we just wanted to give the broad overview. Because full time, it's difficult, right? Because we essentially assign a percentage of the time that full time staff is going to utilize to support all the different programs. I'm not necessarily sure we segregate it by the program. We're just providing the general support. But the part-time cost for the child care program is going to be $107,000.
It's going to be 107 plus a portion of the full time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. Absolutely.
For 50 kids, right?
56.
56.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
let's do a. Oh, you ready to go into the childcare? Let's do a round of questions while.
Before this.
Yeah, before
I
this.
have one more slide before I turn it over to Jay as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay,
next
sure.
steps for this one, and then we'll go to questions, and I can turn it over to Jay.
Okay.
We need approval of this budget just to kind of, since we're not doing a full budget amendment, so we can explain why we did what we did with the appropriations. I think, again, I discussed what's happened in November, the appropriations, and then the amendment. Eventually, the FY21 budget will come in December that will reflect all of this that we're discussing right now.
Okay, thank you. Folks at home, Councilmember Machado, questions or comments?
Yes, my first comment is thank you so much for the breakdown and for adding the breakdown in the agenda. It's very helpful. Also, I have a question about help to the businesses. So if a business is running and they had these expenses for social distancing, PPE, and all of that, can they apply for a grant?
Yeah, so all businesses can apply. The kind of the categories of how much funding they got was really dependent on how much they were restricted by the government. But certainly when they put on the applications that they had to have, when you look at the CARES Act language, it's for their revenue loss, right, associated with mainly the shutdowns from the government, but also from recession impacts. And then also any expenditures that they had to incur because of social distancing. All that is helpful when they apply, when they submit their grant application, because it helps us document that need if federal auditors do show up to demonstrate that why our businesses were struggling. So we've encouraged all businesses to apply, but again, the larger grant amounts went to the businesses that were shut down, like the restaurants and the retail establishments.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed.
Yes, like a question about I guess the hazard pay. Is it just for our departments? It says fire department, police department, parks and rec. Do they include? I guess this does not include the treasurers or the commissioner's office employees.
No, it doesn't include any of the city hall staff, minus emergency operation or emergency management employees working directly on COVID-19. And it doesn't include any of the city hall staff, and it doesn't include Calvin's department. So public works, community development, those were excluded from the CARES Act language that's qualified.
Got it. Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up? Councilman?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions. Thanks, Lazo.
Thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
I'm just curious, how many businesses applied for a grant?
36.
Total businesses or ones that are eligible?
I guess you want to know total that
Both.
applied, or both.
Well, total would be roughly over about 45 plus, but a lot of those included home businesses that we were not considering through the eligibility since they weren't brick and mortar establishments.
Yeah.
Total granted eligible ones was 34. That's the ones that we have to date.
So 34.
Okay, good.
But all businesses will benefit from kind of the second round when we do the deed pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Leslie, of those 34, the majority of those are the restaurant retail.
Thank you.
Do you have another question? Okay. Councilmember
I
Schumer.
couldn't hear Chris. What was that number?
Yeah, so it was 34 that have been awarded, and to Chris's point, the majority of those were the restaurants and retail establishments. And then we received roughly 45 applications, but we had a lot of home-based businesses that weren't, from the first round, weren't kind of the priority. And the first round really was focused on the retail and restaurants that were shut down. But the second round now is really going to benefit all businesses.
Okay.
My only question was, and this was a very thorough presentation, thank you, Lazo, and the people that helped you, I know, on the finance team and in the departments. Do we need $80,000 in IT support?
Yes.
Can you explain to me why we need that?
We have a very short-staffed IT department, and you can see one of the key components of the CARES Act money and why local governments even received it was the effort to try to go digital, to try to utilize technology to facilitate employee interactions with each other remotely or via technological platforms versus face-to-face meetings, and to engage with the public without having the public to come in. So that was one of the priority rationales for local governments receiving it. You can't just say, here, take this money, do all these programs, but by the way, you can't have staff to implement these programs, right? So Don and his team already have their baseline kind of work. We're throwing on a bunch of stuff to the IT department. And when you have an IT department designed for everyone working here versus now sending a lot of people remote like we did, and which we may potentially have to do again if we get a second wave, that requires additional support. That's a lot of phone calls from people at their home saying, oh, my VPN went down or this went down. And when you only have a few personnel, it makes it difficult to go ahead and accomplish that. Whether we'll spend the full 80,000 or not, don't know. But that's the kind of rough estimate that we laid out there. But we certainly need technology support, and I should have probably put that in the first budget. I should have helped out Don more in the first budget, but we didn't do that. But Don kind of raised his hands and said, look, this is getting burdensome now. It's getting beyond what they can manage. So,
how many hours a week are you estimating? Because I mean that would be easily be a 2,000 hour a year employee.
Yeah, we're looking at roughly, we estimated, if we're lucky, October through December is what we're looking at.
And how many? So you're looking at a full-time person for 3 months.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, $80,000, we could hire somebody for the whole year.
20,000, and then you have contract support. I don't know how much of this year we may have to use more contract support or not.
All right, so you're going to hire somebody for 3 months. You're going to a temp, so to speak.
We have to advertise the positions. We don't know. We're asking for the funding, and then HR and the IT department will go out and try to recruit someone to help the city out in terms of the personnel. And Chris and Don will evaluate contract or options to help us out with the implementation stuff.
Yeah, I just, because that's a big category, and I don't feel like we had a lot of discussion about what the needs were, and because it's a large amount of money, whether it's hours, so to speak, or not. It's $60,000 for contract support. How many hours are you basing that on? I mean, like a 40-hour-a-week person for 3 months.
It's not really hour. Well, it depends how you say hour, because it could be multiple personnel each working 40 hours, right? We just don't know until we get approval, until we go out there and actually try to get personnel, right? We just don't know, and we don't know if we're going to spend all that. And that's why, again, I keep emphasizing that we're going to need to be able to likely shift things around in November based off of the realities of what we're experiencing.
Okay.
I mean, if the government body doesn't think it's a need, we can certainly shift that amount of money somewhere else. But
I'm just trying to figure out how you would spend that much money in 3 or 4 months.
Oh, you can spend it if depending on the company that you bring in. But
Well,
again, we're going to want to be judicious in what we're doing.
Right.
And it may not get spent. As he said, they'll be moving funds around, but we don't want to have all these extra responsibilities placed on the IT department without some kind of help. I mean, that would not be fair.
Same logic as the social services department. We had to ramp up the benefit applications, and then we provide them the additional part-time hour support, and that's essentially what we're doing here with the IT department. Minus there's a lot of implementations that, you don't want to get implementations wrong. And so we need that extra support to make sure that we're in a very tight timeline to get this thing done as well.
Okay. And I have a process question. There are 3 motions at the end of this CARES Act funding for Manassas Park. City Attorney, should we vote on these now and then go into the child care program?
I'm going to child care program first, because that's one of the biggest components of.
Okay, so that is.
That's not on here. That's part of this overall budget.
Okay.
It's actually, so it's part of that program 1, that $300,000.
Okay, I see.
Based off of the child care program.
Okay, thank you.
So it was just like I provided a little bit more background on some of these others. This is the big program. This is the biggest new thing that we're going to do with Parks and Rec. So I wanted to give an opportunity to describe the program and take any questions so you all feel comfortable
Okay,
Because if we don't do this program, then we're gonna have to shift all that money around the,
I see.
for program one. We'll only have the real expenditure of that 106, that first row, plus the social distancing employees, the MAP clinic, and then a little bit of the food delivery and and fuel stuff from the month of July, a very small piece of that. But then the $300,000 wouldn't be a part of it. So we now
I
have
see.
$300,000 that you would have to direct me where you'd want me to shift that money.
Isn't am I correct that the school division's doing food delivery for lunches?
They'll deliver to the community centers what we've been told.
I mean, they're actually doing delivery out in the community, because I see I see things
There's
on
a
Facebook.
vehicle, there's a vehicle.
Yeah, I see pleadings that people to come out and get food. They've got too much, and it justifies the program by having them take the food. Like I didn't know if we were duplicating something that they were already doing.
So are they delivering to seniors or what?
No, it's just school-age children.
Yeah.
Well, they're. I mean, it literally said anybody can come. Anybody with a child could come. I mean, it was a very open-ended. I mean, they were.
You don't want your seniors just rushing to an area where there's a lot of people gathering around and collect food.
Well, they can't anyway. If you're an adult, you have to show your child's student ID, so it's only for children.
That was the majority of the demographic that we were serving in our food related program, because we're trying to
That's for
help
seniors.
them not have to go to public establishments, since they're really the ultimate ones who are at most risk for COVID.
I just want to make sure we're not duplicating. That was all.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to Jay. Jay, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me open up your PowerPoint.
So, Jacqueline Perry is our recreation specialist for school-age programs, and she directly manages our extended care program. She did an awesome job over the last couple of weeks putting together all this data and putting it all into a nice, kind of succinct proposal. So she'll be delivering the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Jay.
Ready. Alrighty, so the program overview, basically the virtual learning hub will serve as a space conducive to supporting children's learning during the academic day. The program is flexible and will adjust contingent upon NPCS's month-by-month decision, and the program is exempt from Virginia state licensing based on the following code.
Interesting.
Accommodation, so hours, location, and capacity. The proposed location is the Manassas Park Community Center. Our before and after care hours. The hours for before care will be 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. The aftercare hours will be 3:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. and that location will be in the gymnasium. The capacity of students that we'll be able to hold is 56, and the staff that we will need for those 56 students is 3 leaders and 3 aides. For the virtual learning part of the day, that runs from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The locations for those will be MP classrooms 1, 4, and 5, and then teaching classrooms 1 and 2. Again, the maximum capacity is 56 students. So that's 5 classrooms, and we'll be able to fit 12 students in each of the MP classrooms, 1, 4, and 5, and then 10 students in each teaching classroom. The classroom staff that we'll need for those classes will need 1 leader per classroom and then 2 aides per classroom. And the aides overlap about 30 minutes, but there's a morning shift aide and then an afternoon shift aide.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, could you review the classroom situation again? That went by pretty fast. There's 3, did you say 3 standard rooms, and then how many rooms are there total? 5.
So there's 5 classrooms. Yeah, there's 5 classrooms total. Each classroom will have 1 leader and 2 aides per class.
And three classrooms have 10 students, and 2 of them have 12. Is that?
No, 3 have 12 and 2 have 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just based off kind of the size of each of those.
Thank you.
So a quick daily walkthrough. The day could include any of the combination of the following activities. Obviously, the bulk of the day would be used for assisted virtual learning. There may be opportunities for free play, organized activities, socially distanced group games, outdoor play, gym time, homework time. There will obviously be time for lunch and possibly snacks, crafts, and then obviously a lot of cleaning and sanitizing. So the before care daily walkthrough, we would have 6 before care staff members that will arrive at 6:45. They'll set up necessary supplies. Those 6 staff will be 3 aides and 3 leaders. We'll also have 1 front desk staff that will arrive at the same time, as we will need somebody to let parents in the building since the building will be closed to the public. 7 a.m., starting at 7 a.m., the front desk staff will direct parents to the gym to sign their students in and drop them off. We will have mask enforcement still in effect for children that are 10 and older. 7 a.m. to 7:45, staff will engage students in various activities in the gym. And then at 7:45, classroom staff will pick up their kids from the gym. 7:45 to 8 a.m., all of the before care staff will clean up and sanitize their respective spaces and clock out.
Question. Will the front desk person that's there at 7 a.m. also be paid out of the CARES money?
Yeah, there's a calculation for,
Because the only point is that our building is currently not, when we're in regular operations, doesn't open until 8 o'clock. So that's actually an additional hour that's not part of our regular budget because our building's not open. Okay.
plus we're gonna be largely closed for all other activities as well. So it's really just to help process, facilitate the kids coming in and checking in.
So the virtual learning daily walkthrough, 7:30 a.m. we'll have the 5 classroom aides. They'll arrive and they'll set up necessary supplies in their respective classrooms. And remember, that's 1 aide per class. 7:45, 5 leaders will arrive. They'll report to their respective classrooms. 1 staff from each classroom will pick up their students from the before care staff in the gym as indicated on their roster. 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., the majority of this time will be dedicated to the students' group and or independent learning time. Staff will take students to the restroom as needed, and when time allows, we will incorporate gym time and short activities. 3:35 p.m., 1 classroom staff per class will take all of the aftercare students to the gym. And then 3:35 before, the classroom staff will clean up and sanitize their respective classroom spaces. The aftercare daily walkthrough, 3:15, the 6 morning care staff will return for aftercare, and that's pending that those same staff can work. If not, then it would be a different set of staff. 3:35 p.m., the classroom staff will drop off aftercare students to the gym. 3:35 to 6, the staff will engage students in various group activities in the gym or outside. Parents will pick up at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. to 6:15 p.m., staff will clean up and sanitize their respective spaces and equipment, and then still the front desk staff will be available to let parents in and out throughout the duration of the day. Late fees will be assessed on all pickups after 6 p.m., which is $5 for the first 10 minutes and then $1 per minute thereafter. So this is just a mock-up of what the classrooms would look like. These tables will obviously be socially distanced, and they are each located near an outlet so that the kids can plug up their computers and charge them. Each workstation will have a designated lunch table that they will go to, so that way it's easy for them to just get up, hop over to the table that's next to them and have their lunch. And then also keep their lunches and drinks and snacks and stuff separate from, where their devices will be.
And just to know, each workstation, so it'll be 2 kids in each workstation. And just so that way we're maintaining the social distance between each kid. And the same thing will be true for the lunch tables as well.
Okay.
And then the gymnasium floor plan, we will have a craft table, possibly 2, and then a sign-in table for parents. So staffing and hiring needs, as I mentioned before, morning and aftercare, we will need 3 leaders and 3 aides. For the virtual learning hub, we would need 5 leaders and 10 aides. For backup staff, in case there's vacation, sick, anybody needs to quarantine, we would need an additional 3 leaders, 6 aides, and 2 front desk staff. And then we would need 2 front desk staff on a normal day. So the total staff needed to run the program is 34. We currently have 6 that are on staff that we can commit to this program, which leaves us with 28 that we need to either hire or find. And then we may have part-time staff that is currently on payroll to fill those positions, but we're currently filtering through them to see who would be a good fit for the program. So staff schedule for before and after care. The before care staff would come in at 6:45. They would work until 8 a.m. and then 3:15 to 6:15. And that goes for both leaders and aides. For the virtual learning hub, the aides would come in at 7:30 a.m. and work until 12. And then the second shift of aides would come in at 11:30 and work until 4. The leaders would work from 7:45 a.m. until 4 p.m. The front desk staff, there would be 2 of them, so one would come in at 6:45 and work until 1 p.m., and the other would come in at 12:30 p.m. and work until 6:30 p.m. So this is the pricing structure that was come up with. It is basically a sliding scale based on family's income. So it looks like there's going to be no additional child discount needed. Family size is not required, and the rate is monthly per child. I believe that the information is going to go to social services to determine where the family falls in terms of their fee responsibilities. There will be a registration fee of $50 per kid to reserve a spot, and it will be reimbursed to families that are below the 75433 income level. And then meals will be provided by the school, or parents can pack, and there's no transportation available.
Again, and one of the reasons, the rationale for this pricing structure, so we looked at Fairfax County as the kind of the driver of all this, the good model there. They had much higher fees than we do, but then they also had kind of financial support for those in need. They had transportation support for those in need. We wanted to get rid of those extra administrative burdens and just come out with a much lower fee to kind of help facilitate what would otherwise be, having high fees and then creating a program to determine who needs to have a lower fee.
Yeah.
So these are the part-time personnel expense numbers. These are based on running 1 classroom, 2 classrooms, 3 classrooms, 4, and then all 5. You can find those figures below. And then I think Mr. Palco mentioned before that we will have full-time staff that will also be supporting the program, but the costs are not reflected in those numbers above. So this is just an overview of Manassas Park. So we would again, be on a sliding scale from $0 to $400 in terms of pricing. We would operate Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Meals will be provided by the schools, and we will not offer a split program option. Basically, care is for the entire day. And so this is just what our neighboring jurisdictions look like. I'm not going to bore you guys and read all of it to you, so you can just kind of take a gander and look and see where we kind of stack up against other local jurisdictions.
It's not even close. I mean, ours is way less expensive than, because we're doing that. Our is per month or per week?
Ours is per month.
Wow.
Any questions on this one?
No questions?
So these were just some of my findings through my collaboration with some of the jurisdictions that you saw on the slide before. These programs have been most successful as a result of support and collaborative efforts with their local school districts. Many have partnered directly with their school district superintendent. The school support consisted of supplying meals, desks, chairs, cubbies, and a list of families that they think are in the most need of this program. Another thing was that program numbers were not as high as they anticipated, and then they also had one jurisdiction that had extra laptops on site for students that may encounter troubleshooting issues.
That's second to last school. The program numbers have not been as high as anticipated. Remember when we did the survey?
I'm sorry, can you speak a little louder?
So the second to last bullet says the numbers just haven't been that high in the other jurisdictions. But when we did the survey, we specifically asked if we charge a fee, would that reduce your ability to participate? And a good size of the population said that it would. I think that's why we're seeing that in the other localities, which again justifies the strategy that we're going with.
I'm really thrilled that we can afford to provide this at such a good rate for residents. Yes, right. Yeah, exactly.
We're not looking to make money off of this program.
Right.
Like our extended care program, it's literally a support network to our residents that are in need.
Do you think that the fee in the other jurisdictions is keeping their numbers lower?
Yeah. And based off the survey results that we got, like, taking people at their word that they wouldn't be able to participate if a fee was in there because of all the financial hardships. Taking them at their word, it was a good percentage of our parents that wouldn't be able to participate.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing it this way.
All right, so eligibility. The child must be enrolled in Manassas Park City Schools, kindergarten through 5th grade for the 2020-2021 school year. They must be City of Manassas Park residents. And Manassas Park City parents were offered the option to basically opt their children out of attending school regardless of what the school's month-to-month decision was for the first semester. So if parents did that, they are not eligible. All parents and guardians living in the home must meet one or more of the criteria below. So they must work 30 hours a week at a job site. They cannot work from home. Attend a job training 30 hours a week, or they can be unemployed and actively looking for work. We'll also have 10 slots that will be reserved for non-English as a first language residents to give them more time to apply and become informed of the program.
Another point here that we'll be asking in the application and for them to certify in the registration is that there's not that we're going to provide the CDC link for those underlying health conditions that put people at greater risk for COVID-19. And we want to make sure that people aren't participating if they have one of those to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. Presumably those who opted out of the in-person learning, that's probably one of the reasons why they did that. So I don't think it's going to be a big issue.
Right. Thank you.
So none of the 1,208, whatever the number is, students, or I guess parents of students who opted for virtual learning for the whole first semester, they're not eligible.
No, because again, we have the limited resource of only 56 slots. So So we really wanted to focus on those who were planning on having their kids attend in person.
Right.
Because they work at a job site and presumably there's no underlying health condition concern. So they said, yeah, we're okay with having our kid go to school. But then that was flipped and they were no longer able to do that. And now they're left scrambling trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
totally,
what we're trying to-
I agree with that. I just wanted to confirm that's
Yeah.
that's what it is. Okay.
Go ahead.
So policies. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just saying, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Policies and procedures. For inclement weather, in the event of inclement weather, we propose following the city's delay and closure decision. Parents will be notified by email and updates will be posted on the community center website. We will also have text messaging via Camp Docs and the community center Facebook page. The one thing that we do ask is that we do need ample notice. No later than 6 a.m. would be ideal because we do have staff that comes in at 6:45, so we want to ensure their safety as well as the students. All other policies and procedures of the program will very closely mirror those that are already in place for our extended care program and summer camp program.
Does that mean that you, Laszlo, need to make a citywide decision? Because there isn't going to be a tweet from Bruce saying schools are closed because schools are already closed.
Yeah, that's the difference. Is normally like city operations were a little bit more conservative compared to kind of like education. Like for our extended care preschool, we usually follow what the schools are going to be doing. So yes, I'm going to have to wake up Keith and Jay at 3 or 4 a.m. and come up with a decision on what to do, track it out, and let the Parks and Rec team know what's going on.
Keith, this was under the other duties as assigned. You didn't realize what you were going to get.
Or presumably, if we have information the night before, we want to try to provide it. Usually, the day before is the best thing for parents who can plan. So if we know there's a good probability that we're going to get hit with snow, we'll probably just make that call the night before.
Right. I actually was thinking of hurricane.
Yeah.
Because we have a very active hurricane season right now. That it might not be snow. It might actually be a storm or kind of some other natural event.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing with those storms is you usually have a few days lead up time to kind of plan all the contingencies. And you can see once there's a risk of a hurricane hitting us, we usually get informed by the state emergency management department and the National Weather Service. They actually start scheduling daily calls and with the entire kind of emergency management team in the city. So we usually prep a good amount of days before something like that.
Go ahead and then we'll move into questions.
So the expectations for transitioning into the hybrid model, when schools do move into the hybrid model, we will continue to serve children and provide virtual learning support on their off days. And then the students that are going to school, it will run similar to the extended care program.
Yeah, so this one we're going to have to, it may allow us to serve more kids when we go this way, right? But it's just going to be a different set of cohort on Monday and Wednesday versus Tuesday and Thursday. And I just wanted to thank Jacqueline and everyone at the Parks and Rec staff for putting this together and for everything that they've been doing since COVID-19 started. They're great public servants who really been out there serving our community. So we're really blessed to have them on the team. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You have thought of absolutely everything in this presentation and in this program. This is absolutely wonderful. We'll move into questions now. Vice Mayor Banks, do you have any comments or questions? Vice Mayor Banks, are you there?
You have to unmute your mic.
Preston? Okay.
Sorry about that. I got it.
Okay.
Set my phone back up. I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Machado?
I just want to reiterate that this was a great presentation. easy to follow, very informational. Yes, so this program is going to last for 12 weeks, right?
It will last until the kids go back to school. Like I said, the hybrid model would run a little bit differently than the program I just outlined, but ultimately we would run until the kids go back to school full time.
Wow.
So if they don't go back to full time until like January, this program would stop. Christmas break essentially is when this would end, and then we wouldn't have the funding to have the subsidized program in January. We could theoretically continue it, but then we may have to charge a higher fee from a budget standpoint.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up, Councilmember Machado?
Yes, so if a child is attending, a kid can attend free virtual learning after school, so the same kid can attend the free program?
So can you repeat that, Maureen? Were you asking, do they attend all three, the before, daytime? Yeah, it's all one, like you have to.
Before, during, and after?
Yeah, it's gonna be the whole day. We're not gonna segregate it out.
Did that answer your question?
I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
Yes, I have a question about the education component. If a student needs tutoring, would the staff member be able to assist them?
No, the staff cannot be in like a teacher role in any capacity because we're not certified for that. So we'll be able to help on a pretty basic level, but in terms of, really helping them kind of learn a concept or tutor, our staff won't be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yes, hey, good evening. I have a couple questions. Now, say if a staff member is a positive for COVID, you mentioned a quarantine, but would this program still be in place, or would it just completely shut down if we have a staff member that becomes positive?
No, the program will not completely shut down. The whole purpose of having the kids in cohorts is so that we would be able to continue to run the program and then quarantine as needed.
Yeah, so presumably we may have to shut down an entire cohort, but we'd be able to keep the rest of them going.
Does that mean one classroom cohort is classroom?
There's five classrooms, and those kids are staying together. So that would better enable us to kind of focus on that specific group.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up, Hasib?
Yes, I guess a question for if the family is going month to month with this program, like say if they want to do October and then say November, they opted out. Can they do that? And would that space be available or advertised for maybe another family to hop in?
Are you saying like if they wanted to attend the month of October but then not attend in November?
Correct.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm going to toss that over to Mr. Laszlo.
Yeah, we would encourage everyone if they're going to sign up, which is why we have the registration fee to commit for as long as schools are out. But certainly we do want to be flexible because if people have changing circumstances or they move, whatever, if slots are open, to your point, the larger point, if slots become open, then yeah, we're going to want to re-advertise that to the community that we have additional slots. But certainly we want to try to keep some consistency, not prioritize it. If the capacity is not full, then we don't really have to worry. But if we have more people applying than slots available, we want to make sure it's those who are committed throughout the entire semester.
Got it.
Okay.
And then the other question I have is about, I guess, when parents drop off their kids and pick them up, what safety measures do we have just in case if a parent gets stuck at work and they have a family member come pick them up? Are they phoning you guys? Are they gonna write a form of emergency contact, or what's that procedure like?
Yeah, so the registration form will have all of that, will request all of that information from the parent, just like a normal child care program. So we'll have emergency contact. In the event that somebody's picking up that is not on their form, the parent does have to email us and send us the information of that particular person that's picking up, and we will card them.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. To piggyback off of Steve's question, are we going to keep a wait list?
You're saying, yeah, for those?
Yes, we will have a wait list. Oh,
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you answered it. Thanks.
Will we be doing temperature checks on drop-off?
Those, and Jay, I don't know if you want to add piggyback, but based off of our research, that there doesn't seem to be kind of a good rationale for doing the temperature checks anymore. I know that was an early on strategy, but it just, from what we've been reading, it doesn't seem to be an effective solution. And
They're not
Jay,
reliable.
Yeah,
It's not.
Jay, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, we had looked, we actually had been doing quite a bit of research and actually had met with a company regarding a camera system that could do kind of almost like an infrared scan as everyone walked into the main entrance of the building. And that's something we had considered possibly using some funds to procure early on. But as time has gone on, it seems like the more and more research out there is kind of indicating that maybe that's not as strong of an indicator of necessarily a COVID positive case. So I'm not sure it'll be worth the cost commitment there to go that route at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's always concerns about accuracies too. We were doing temperature checks and they were all over the place, like here in City Hall, so it wasn't really a helpful gauge for us.
Okay.
Yeah. And my understanding is that your temperature can be perfectly normal and you can be COVID positive or vice versa. Yeah, so, okay.
How will classes be organized? Are we going to try to keep like age groups together, or are we going to try to keep members of the same family together?
So classes will be broken down by age. It would be ideal to keep siblings together, so I think it's really going to depend on how many families we see with siblings. But typically we break our classes down by grade.
Okay. And then my last question is about the eligibility requirements. I can see having a family who works from home who can't supervise their kindergartner and their virtual learning. So why are we excluding work from home?
We may change that, but like again, the priority, because we only have the 56 slots, we really want to prioritize first those who have to work on the job site, and based off the survey results, a pretty significant portion of those responding who say they have a need is because they work on it. So if we only get a handful, right, or not the full 56, and we're a few weeks into it, we might be able to open it up to anyone else who kind of needs the support. But we really want to prioritize those who have limited options because they have to work on site.
Okay.
But I completely understand your point is it almost becomes a full-time job to help your 5-year-old out with that.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Do you have a follow-up or anything? Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
No, I just wanted to say to Jacqueline and staff, this is a very good proposal, and I know it must have taken a significant amount of time to put it together. So I just want to say thank you on that. And one concern I had was worrying about getting enough staff, and specifically, trying to attract an aide who is, I don't know what our pay scale is, but trying to get an aide to come in for an hour and 15 minutes in the morning and then return for 3 hours. Like, what's the likelihood that we're going to have an employee that can commit to that time for relatively lower pay? I'm worried, like, we might get people that'll say, well, we can do the 3 hours in the afternoon, but it's not really worth my while to take the position if I have to show up for 75 minutes and I'm commute 20 minutes each way from home. I realize the limitations of the program. I'm just concerned that we won't attract enough staff to be able to run the morning portion of the program.
Well, one of the things that we did look at was making the pay for this particular program more competitive. And the other thing is that hopefully we'll be able to use the staff that we already have on payroll for those particular positions. A lot of the staff that I have that works during the school year, those are the hours that they normally work anyway.
Okay.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I was just concerned about that when I saw that, just, to making sure we have enough staff to be able to cover for the kids that we have. So I guess my other question was, when they go to hybrid, so they're only going to be in 3 days a week, because Monday everybody's virtual. I believe under their proposal, Monday is the virtual day, and then it's every other day. So we'll have theoretically 56 kids on Monday and half the kids on the other days. Is that correct?
Well, we'll have to work it out when it gets to that, but the primary focus would be to align with the schools on their A and B cohorts and try to service the cohorts who are off that day. So the day that everyone's off is going to be tricky, because it just depends on the numbers, right? So if you have a mix of A and B, but even that, we really need to think about it, because the purpose of the schools having that A and B is that they're separate. So I think that Monday will probably end up going away, right? Because they don't want those groups of kids that are in the A and B interacting, because they want to, again, limit the exposure. So if they're having issues with spread in cohort A, it's not impacting cohort B.
Right.
So we wouldn't be able to serve both populations on that Monday when they're off, because then we're going against kind of the school strategy of trying to keep them separate.
Then maybe we need to reach out, and if they go to hybrid, to get all the kids that are in our program on one in the same cohort then.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. If it's kind of spread out across grades, I think that's a good idea.
Right. I mean, I know that schools have different ideas on what they need to do as well, but maybe all the kids that are in our program would all be in cohort A, and they would all go to school together.
Right.
Even though they will be in different classrooms, they would all be on the same days.
They could potentially be Monday at the community center, Wednesday and Friday, and then now we could expand we can offer it to cohort B students for the Tuesdays and Thursdays if they need that support. But the kids who are in our program from the start have those 3 days of service. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Just because I know we're looking at not mixing kids, and we need to keep them kind of siloed a little bit for a while until we go back to full instruction. So I do like the requirements that that we make sure that we have Manassas Park residents and that are in our schools, and reaching out to our Hispanic community and other communities that don't speak English, because there are other communities who don't speak English that are not Hispanic.
So I put the non-English.
Right, absolutely. So there may be other communities that that may benefit.
And what you saw from like the CDC survey, even though kind of the methodology isn't perfect, there's just that lag in awareness of programs from non-English speaking families. So we certainly want to.
And I see them. They're at work. I see them all the time. They're, all over the place on work sites. That they need to be at work. I like the late policy. My question is that parents be able to be there at 6 o'clock to avoid just that it's a free program, but they will have to pay the late fees, and that maybe needs to be stressed, because it is a free or reduced price program, but they could incur late fees if they come after 6 o'clock, especially since the building won't be open.
That'll encourage responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I know they do that in the regular program, but just that maybe need to be emphasized in the sense that it's
free, that you do have that late fee.
that the late fees are not free. Yeah. So it's, but I just want to say overall, it's a very good program and well put together. And
one thing I forgot to mention, if we have some patrons that are paying a fee, then we're going to have to show that revenue, and I can't count. I'm going to have to subtract the COVID or the CARES Act expenditures by that amount, so that we're not collecting money and using CARES Act money for that portion. I'm going to have to subtract that out in the budget, and that will be additional money that we can then shift over.
yeah, what are we going to do about Election Day?
I believe that's a holiday now. I think
right, but that means kids can't be there.
Correct. I think all buildings, city hall buildings all city buildings minus the emergency buildings and the election sites will be closed.
Right. I'm just saying is that maybe that needs to be stressed because a lot of people may not have that day off from work, but we will be closed.
Yeah, so we have to advertise all the days that we're closed.
Yeah. I mean, just because I know that's a big one, and I'm not sure what their hours are going to be for that day. So.
Okay, staff recommendation. There are 3 motions. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the proposed FY21 CARES Act budget as presented and provide the city manager flexibility in November to begin moving funds across the different programs as needed to ensure full use of CARES Act funding. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
One abstain.
Okay, that's Vice Mayor Banks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. The second is that city manager be required to report at the second meeting in November and all subsequent meetings in December the budget actuals for CARES Act spending as necessary to inform the governing body on progress with the use of funds.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Preston?
Abstain, sorry.
Preston? Okay. 1 abstention. Okay. That the governing body authorize the city manager to present an amended FY21 budget and appropriations to reflect the full CARES Act program revenue and expenditures.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
One abstain.
Okay, thank you, Preston. Motion carries. Thank you.
I have one question. I apologize.
This was very well thought out. Yeah, kudos to Parks and Rec.
I have one question, and I thought of it while we were voting. Is that in the other budget we approved back in June, how was the revenue assumed in terms of Parks and Rec? Was it I'm honestly I'm blanking of how we assumed whether we were going to be closed, because this is going to close this to the public for a while, and we're not going to be charging the monthly membership fees. How did we assume on the big budget that we approved back in June?
Let me pull it up real quick so I can see what we did with that. I know we definitely have to make some adjustments because we were assuming that we were going to be open.
Right. That was just my question. It wasn't specific to these, but
we assumed in the budget that we were still closed in July and that we were not. But I think we did approve it because there was still talks of opening up the water park a little bit as well. So I think we were overly aggressive in our revenue assumptions. So we're really going to have to adjust that in the budget amendment as well, because we knew there would be a reduction in usage, but we assumed we'd be open and maybe we would get back some significant number of patrons. That just hasn't been borne out yet.
Right. Okay.
So definitely, that's going to be a big piece of the budget amendment is reevaluating the Parks and Rec revenues.
Right. But we have the CARES Act, because we're sliding them into the CARES Act role in terms of cash. It floats from one area. It won't hurt us cash-wise, just accounting-wise. We have to fix it, right?
Well, the CARES Act spending for Parks and Rec is directly related to COVID-19.
Right.
Not at all related to revenue or anything like that. So it's purely based off of the demand that we've identified for the child care program and food delivery for expenditures for.
Right. I know the expenditures will be covered. It's just we have to deal with the revenue side of it.
Yeah,
Right.
that the city's gonna have to deal with within our own budget. We can't use CARES Act money for the revenues.
Right. I know that. Yeah.
I just want to keep emphasizing that.
No. I know. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, moving on to 9E, second quarter appropriations, FY 2021, city and schools.
Okay. For the city portion, you see the breakdown is pretty standard. We usually just divide it equally by 4, except for capital and debt. Debt is provided directly by the finance department on how much we're actually going to spend on debt for that quarter, and then capital we usually wind down during the winter and then ramp up in the summer and the springtime. The important points here are the additional round 2 CARES Act money that wasn't accounted for in the FY21 budget when that was adopted in appropriations. And then the unspent CARES Act money from FY20 was also, we assumed that we were going to spend that in 20. We have to roll that over now and adjust the appropriations and eventually the budget amendment to reflect that remaining amount. The $52,000 from that the registrar is receiving from the state as well is also included in this appropriation. So Q2 of our fiscal year 21 appropriations really covers all that extra CARES Act money to account for the full CARES Act budget for the entire city. For the schools, just one note, there is one discrepancy with the city, what they're factoring in the city revenue. It doesn't match what was approved in the budget. And we're still having ongoing discussions because they're saying it's a grant program from previous years that have been rolled over. We just need to identify where that's coming from. But either way, it could be that is the case, but they still need to come back and have you all increase their budget allotment from the city by that amount and the appropriations. Right now, we're just appropriating based off of what you all legally adopted in your budget. You can always appropriate more if you'd like, but that's a discussion that schools need to come back and let us know about that 25.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions, comments? Councilmember Javed.
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Machado.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks.
No questions. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Mensing.
No.
Shoemaker.
One question is, because we've had the CARES money kind of sitting in there, waiting to spend it, have we had to do tax anticipation note borrowing this quarter? Do we anticipate in the second quarter we have to do that as well?
Let me talk to Fawn and Patty a little bit more. I think a lot of it's going to depend on personal property taxes and if we're going to see a delay. I mean, we've been looking at the lines that started earlier this year, so I don't believe we'll have that, but a lot of it will depend on how much we actually collect with personal property tax. But certainly the CARES Act money is that extra push. Now it also is going to depend on when we get all the Connor Drive bills as well for that project, because remember there's a lag from VDOT reimbursements. So if we're going to spend nearly $1 million out of our bank account and then going to wait a few months, probably till January, February, who knows when we'll see that money, that could potentially be an impact. But that's why we did the VML finance program, because that's the primary objective of that one is to help localities when they're doing these expensive capital projects where they're waiting on VDOT reimbursements or stormwater reimbursements or other reimbursements from the state or federal government.
Right, absolutely.
Hopefully we should be okay. We shouldn't have to borrow, but I don't want to judge that right now until I see what happens with the personal property tax revenue and the VDOT or the Connor Drive bills when we actually get those bills.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Staff recommendation is that the governing body appropriate $17,486,146 to the city, including $292,473 for Bull Run ASAP for the second quarter of fiscal year 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Second staff recommended motion is that the governing body appropriate $13,419,678 to the city schools for the second quarter of fiscal year 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't wait long enough. Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. That was unanimous, right? Okay. Okay, next is 9F, approval of an agreement for inspection, maintenance, and repair of the city's generators.
Calvin, are you still with us? I see you there.
Good evening again, Mayor, members of council, staff, citizens, guests.
Yeah.
Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. This is pretty straightforward. We have quite a few generators, emergency backup generators in the city, associated with our sewage lift stations, our water pump stations, and our public facilities. We reached out to several different firms to get quotes for the annual inspection and maintenance of those generators. Advanced Equipment came in as the low bidder and was fortunate because they've actually been our generator contractor for some time. So staff doesn't have any concerns with this new agreement. It is $8,800 a year to inspect all facilities. I will apologize, the agenda item seems to be a little cut off. The fire department wasn't covered under the previous Advanced Equipment agreement, so the actual last sentence of the background information should read that the new agreement continues this and adds the fire department. But as you can see, there's 7 generators that they inspect, with each inspection, and that will equal $8,800 a year. But because we're looking to potentially extend this agreement into future years, it comes out to $26,400 for the life of the contract. Again, staff's recommendation is to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement.
Thank you, Calvin. Questions, Councilmember Machado?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed? Councilmember Javed? Are you there? Did he get cut off? Okay.
I'll shoot him a text.
We can't hear you. If you can hear us, Hasib, we can't hear you. Let's go on to Vice Mayor Banks while we're waiting for Hasib. Preston?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker? No questions? Okay.
Sorry.
He turned green. Do you have any questions? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Staff recommendation is that we authorize the city manager to sign an agreement with Advanced Equipment for inspection, maintenance, and repair of the city's generators at an annual cost of $8,800 in substantially the form as presented, pending final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 9G. 9G is an appointment to, recommendation for an appointment to the Board of Equalization of Mr. Anthony Shiflett. Mr. Shiflett already serves the city as an election worker. The documentation was included in the packet, and my recommendation to you is that the governing body recommend to the Prince William Circuit Court that Anthony Shiflett be appointed to serve on the Board of Equalization for a term to expire on June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Okay.
No question.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 9H is code amendments, bicycle parking on sidewalks and curbside distance of parked vehicles.
I'm getting these up, just for background for residents before I turn it over to Dean to discuss some of the changes he's made to the code. So we've been receiving requests the last few months to go ahead and do some code amendments to clarify certain things such as bicycle parking on sidewalks and then also the distance from curb as well. So I drafted that initial code amendment and then Dean's been looking it over and he's made some edits and I'll turn it over to Dean to describe that.
Do you have the red line version? So change the name.
No, this is the one that I got from your email.
Oh wow, it came through like that.
It came through like this. Yeah.
Mine, yeah.
Okay. So this one right here is the distance from the curb.
On this one here, I didn't really make any changes. There's a couple of stylistic changes to put in the format that we usually send it down. One of the things I just made sure that we kept in there that 12 inches from the curb or shoulder, that had been removed, so that was just a simple little bit. But other than that, it's substantially the same as what is in the packet.
Okay.
All good now? Yeah. Okay, so this one here, I did make some additional changes to it.
I do have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got any question on the other one?
Well, the only comment I was going to make is that we have one-way streets and you may be parking on the left side. So you actually have edge of the curb on here. We're on a one-way street. You could be parked on the other side. So can we word it differently?
Yep.
Where it says park close to and parallel to the right edge of the curb. Can it just be edge of the curb instead of right?
The way it was before. I mean, I think the original was.
I think it did say right. And that's why I kept that one there.
As my concern was on the one-way streets, you could be
What was
parked
the
on the left
previous
side.
wording?
I think it was on the right. Let me see here.
Well, we had taken out the right for that reason before, so.
Okay,
I think we could just say park close to and parallel to the edge of the curb.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think you're right. I think I stole that language from Falls Church. They had the right in there, so you're right. The old ordinance didn't have that one in there, so I accidentally kept that because I borrowed some of the language from Falls Church.
Okay.
The key though is it's facing in the general direction of the flow of traffic, which is the important part. So
Absolutely, yeah.
So you just want to
Yeah.
keep it that way and just get rid of the right side of the curb. Just makes it parallel to the edge of the curb. or
Yeah.
shoulder.
So you're just going to eliminate the word right then, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Parallel to the edge of the curb. or
Yeah,
shoulder.
okay. Hasib, did you have a question?
I was wondering if you guys can go to the previous slide so I could see what you guys talked about.
Yeah, so we would delete this.
They're removing the word right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
So this does not include how far you can park from a driveway entrance, correct?
That's already in the
Just the
code. That's a separate issue.
Oh, I
That's
see.
already in the code. This is number 19 of a long list of regulations associated with parking. Parking near the driveway is one of those.
So there's a long list we're not seeing. You just put in the one that we're actually correcting.
Asterisk there, or put there to show you that there's stuff that was deleted.
Oh, because on the one we,
I added that to make that clear.
Yeah.
So.
on the one we have, we don't have the asterisks.
That was because the city manager was doing it, not the city attorney. So I just did the actual part that I was editing and the kind of intro, and I left everything else just so we focus on that one thing.
But this is the way we would ordinarily send it down anyway, except the red line showing the changes that we
Okay.
what's existing.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one?
Do you want to go ahead and then we'll go around and we'll have a round of questions,
Okay.
so keep
So
going.
the next one here,
Just minimize that one.
Sure. Gotta look up there. Oh, okay. Thanks. All right, so this one here, all I did really was add, let's see, go up here. So I added here, paths and trails and within public right of way, because obviously there are sidewalks, and then we have other areas that are trails that are publicly owned. I can see where, someone would park their bike there and we wouldn't be able to do anything because it wasn't there. So I added those on there, and then within the public right of way in general, because sidewalks are not the entire right of way. We have roads, then we also have little grass strips, and a lot of people don't realize it, but the right of way actually extends into what they think is their front yard. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're doing here. And most of the changes I made elsewhere are the same or just consistent with that. I changed considered abandoned to deemed abandoned. And then also at the very end of it, I basically limited, or because of state law, the police department has to hold property for at least 30 days before they can auction it off. So I just put that at the very end. I just said, let's see, we'll have the authority to seize it and auction it off 30 days following such seizure. So, I mean, you can read the gist of it here, of what I did. But
So it's what you said, not what we have in front of us in the packet.
this in here has all my changes accepted. So you can see here, auction it off 30 days following such seizure.
If they're not moved.
And I just clarified that, it hasn't been moved at the expiration of the 30-day period. And that was implied before, but I just made it explicit just to make sure there's no confusion. I didn't change any of the substance though, I just clarified what I thought the intent was.
So this is not in the packet? Is that what you're saying?
It is, but he amended what was in the packet. So he added the language. So you look at that like third line there, the path, trails, just the same changes that he was referencing above there.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I know that it was in the packet, but his version is not in the packet.
No, it's not, yeah.
Okay.
And then I also just made it so we have A and B here, because it's just, again, it's more stylistic as required by Muni code, so.
Okay.
Nothing substantive.
Okay. Councilmember Machado, do you have any questions? Comments?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
Dean, I have a question.
Yes.
In regards to the 30-day period, is that, how's that going to work? Is it 30 days after the bike gets ticketed, or is it the bike gets ticketed and it's 15 more days?
Well, I don't know if we're ticketing it. We're allowed to put a 15-day warning on there. We're not required to do that. So if it's abandoned, the police department will document it as they do, say, parking infractions, residency requirements. I mean, they'll go ahead and document it in their records, but this doesn't require a ticket.
Yeah, we're just going to put like a warning sticker or kind of wrap around on the bicycle or whatever personal transportation vehicle it is, just so that it's obvious that there's a kind of warning on there that they need to go and communicate with us that it's not an abandoned, because that's the goal of this. It's just to identify that it's not an abandoned bicycle, and they're actively moving it around.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry, I used the wrong word. So the warning. So the bike's gonna get documented by the police for 30 days as being abandoned, and then they receive the warning, or the bike gets the warning, and it's another 15 days.
Yeah, so the 15-day warning, if it's placed, would just say, hey, get your bike out of here, or 15 days from now, we're gonna take it, or we're gonna seize it.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing.
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker.
Yes. I think that we need to make a change because we've got the first 30 days. Okay, so it's sitting there. Then somebody calls and complains. So on day 31, the police go out and put a 15-day thing on it, right? Let's say wrap ticket, or not a ticket, but a sticker, or kind of like the toe tag is in my mind. It's like the cars that get the toe tag and they would stick them on the window. And you got 10, actually with that, you only have 10 days to move the vehicle. But the way this is written, I don't know if it's just unclear, but it should read, if the personal transportation vehicle has not been moved prior to the expiration of the 15-day period, then the police department will be able to.
But we're not required to place the 15-day notice. This is just the police are authorized to. The 30 days is what the trigger is.
I know, but what it should be is 30, 15, and 30. It's 30. They have a 15-day warning per this, and then once they've seized it after the 15 days, then the owner has 30 additional days to retrieve it before it's auctioned. Is that correct?
Yeah, but the way it reads now, it's 30 days.
It's not clear. What I'm telling you, it's not clear.
Okay, so I'm not sure what part's not clear.
Because if the personal transportation vehicle has not been moved prior to the 15-day warning notice, then it may be auctioned by. It should say then it will be auctioned to be possessed and auctioned by the police 30 days after that.
But I think that's what it says. The 15-day
Not
warning.
sequential, not step by step.
The 15-day warning is maybe just take that out.
No, I'm not saying take it out. What I'm saying is it's unclear the way it's written. It should be 30 days after the 15 days, because at the 15 days.
Why would it be 30 days after the 15 days?
Because you've given them 15 days to get it out.
But what if they don't what if they don't place the 15-day warning? Then that whole 30 days after the 15 days falls apart. So this doesn't require the 15-day warning, it just allows it.
Okay,
What
then
you're wanting to do is make it a mandatory 15 days.
Well, no, is because you're saying that the police can auction it off 30 days after the such seizure.
So they seize it 30 days. So if it's been abandoned, they can seize it. The way they find out if it's abandoned is it's been there for 30 days and nobody's moved it. Once they seize it, they have to hold it by law for 30 days before they can auction it off.
Okay.
So the whole 15-day thing is just a courtesy that, guess what?
So it could be 30 days it's abandoned. On day 31, they repossess it, and the 30 days now starts with no tag. Is that correct?
It could be, but by you giving us that authorization, our practice is going to be we'll put the 15-day sticker. But I think that last sentence covers exactly what everyone's saying. So I think Dina has the right language, because built into that, so it's, if the personal transportation vehicle has not been moved prior to the expiration of the 30-day period. So the 30 days, what, to Dean's point, is the infraction, right? That it hasn't moved with 30 days. So we have, at that point, you have authority to seize it, right? But we, as a practice, you've authorized us now to, in addition to that, put a 15-day warning notice. But at Dean's point, legally, we could seize it that day. But from an operational standpoint, we're going to put the 15 days. It says, and the police department has not been notified. So presumably the process for which we get notified is we're going to do that 15-day sticker thing to try to get notified.
Mm-hmm.
And then we seize it.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying, language arts person to me, is that's unclear. That's what I'm saying.
I don't
To
know
a
how to make it
layperson
clear
who
what
is
you
not
wanna say.
legal, who is not a lawyer, that the way it reads is unclear to me.
So you don't see where that 30-day, that second reference to the 30-day period, to you, that does not refer back to the previous mention of 30 days?
No, because then it's the 15 days in there, and they're going to say, well, what does that mean? I mean, I think that second part should be condensed down and made much more clear.
is, literally it should be one sentence, after the 30 days of, if the vehicle is, let's say if the bike is abandoned, comma, the police have the right to auction it 30 days afterwards.
Well, they have to seize it before they can auction.
I mean, what I'm saying is that it needs to be a lot less words.
Donald, I'm sorry, would it be more agreeable to you if it was phrased prior to the expiration of the original 30-day period?
But that's not entirely correct, because you're saying, so theoretically, 30 days comes along, and instead of them taking it on day 31, they put the 15-day notice there. So technically, it takes it to 45 days, to your point, right?
But
and they seize it at that point, and from when the point they seize it is 30 days later. So theoretically, we have a 75-day period instead of a 60-day period. So I understand your point. I think that probably the simplest thing would be is the.
But I think what you're saying though is that the word deemed abandoned is right before that. So all you want to say is when deemed abandoned, police can seize the bicycle and then they can sell it 30 days after.
Right.
Yeah,
that's it. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just saying is that it needs to be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Not
when deemed abandoned, police will seize the vehicle and then auction off.
Yes. Because if
Is that legal, Dean? Is that legal?
I'm just trying to sit there, but then you got other stuff in there that's contrary to that, because you have, if the personal transportation vehicle has been deemed abandoned, then there's the rest of that is irrelevant, because obviously they haven't notified it's not abandoned. So you just want to take that whole part out of there.
Which part?
So it says, and the police department has not been notified by the owner that it's not abandoned. So
No. Yeah, all that would go away. I think it would just be when deemed abandoned, police will seize the bicycle, and the department will have authority to auction it off 30 days following such seizure.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It seems simpler, more understandable.
Okay, so just say, if deemed abandoned, the police department will have the authority to seize such personal transportation vehicle and auction it off 30 days following such seizure.
That makes sense.
I think it's simpler.
I have a question. So how is the original 30-day period determined? Is that resident complaint, or do the police need to eyeball it to make sure that it?
I mean, they just like anything else. So if they get a complaint that somebody doesn't live in the city, they don't take the day that the day they get the call. They take it when they go over there and they can verify. So same thing's going to apply here.
So they will go and they will view it, and that will be day one, and then 30 days from that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, anyone can make a phone
Because
call.
if we, I mean, I'm not saying that residents are going to call it in, but they might lose count of the days.
But they do, and then that's one issue we have where they're like, well, why haven't you enforced it? Well, because we have to see it for those amount of days. And
Yeah.
so it's not.
I was concerned about false call-ins and things like that.
Well, it's fine for them. Like, we want them to call us and like give us the tips on where this is occurring. But again, we just need to keep reminding them that we have to be the ones to witness the infraction. And so it's going to, even though they've seen it there for 30 days, that doesn't mean that for us it's 30 days. We need to verify
that doesn't meet the legal standard. Yeah.
Bear in mind, this is someone's property that we're taking.
Yeah.
There's due process that's involved.
Right.
And due process requires that we have some official that can testify in court as to what happened. So someone calling, even though they're good intention, and they may have sat there and marked off 30 days, that's not going to hold up in court.
Right. No, I just wanted to confirm that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So can I chime in a little bit?
Yes, go ahead.
I think the second, the second to last sentence on the paragraph, where it says the police department will have the authority to seize it and auction it off. Right there, we should include auction it off after the expiration of the 50-day warning.
Well, the problem with that is we may not give a 15-day warning. A 15-day warning is not required, it's just authorized.
Right, but I'm saying that says right there, after 30 days, they could seize it. But then a sentence before that, you're authorizing a 50-day warning.
But I think what you're trying to say, Hasib, is that instead of saying the police department will be authorized to place a 15-day warning, you want us to do that. You want that to be mandatory. So it's the police department will place a 15. Or is that right, Dean? Like to make it mandatory, it'll just be will or shall.
Mandatory.
Yeah, instead of auth. Is that where you're going, Hasib? You want us to actually do the 15-day.
30 days, there's got to be some type of warning. So the warning should be in place after 50 days. 15 days expires, then the officer is seizing it.
Yeah. So the proper change then would be shall instead of authorized, or will be authorized. The police department shall place a 15-day warning notice, and then it's deemed abandoned. And then the following sentence could just say, once it's deemed abandoned, we have the right to seize it and auction off 30 days. And that includes the 15 days already within that.
Right, that would include the 15 days.
Yeah, it would, because now you're requiring us, instead of authorized, it will say the police department shall place a 15-day warning notice on any such personal transportation vehicle, instead of the police department will be authorized to place. Right now, all you're doing is giving us the authority, but not mandating that we do it. So what Hasib is saying is that he wants to mandate that we put the 15-day notice.
I think to his concern, what if you get uneven application? You know, one officer is doing it one way and puts the notices on. Another officer is, the literal is that, hey, the 31st day, I'm going to cut the chain and take it with me. That would be my only concern, is you might get uneven application. And then somebody will say, well, so-and-so got a notice on their bike, but I didn't, and mine got taken away, and I had to go to the police department and pick it up.
Yeah.
That'd be my only thing.
And you can handle it internally with policy. So, police chief policies that we do this. And if they violate the policy, that's, the police officer not acting properly, or by code, that's, so it just depends how we want to do it. But
Consistency is better. I mean, when you leave it up to discretion,
yeah, you're right.
Challenge it. So, this is the way it's written now. It says the police department shall place a 15-day warning notice on any such personal transportation vehicle that is deemed abandoned. It should say has been deemed abandoned. If the personal transportation vehicle has been deemed abandoned, police department shall seize it and auction it off 30 days following such seizure.
That's fine.
That's much more clear. Thank you.
Yeah. That's fine.
Change this to has been.
Any final comments or questions?
Did we want to do, my only question would be, is the 15-day bit, do we want to make it consistent with the vehicles and make it only 10?
We could. That was just a number really that was thrown out there at the last meeting. We can make it 10.
I'm not against 15. I was thinking that maybe it would be consistent, because with the tow tags for cars, they can only get 10. And with kind of the idea that, that by the time somebody calls and complains about it, it's probably been there a few weeks. And then you have to wait 30 more days. And then you wait 15 more days. So like something's there 2 or 3 months and it's an eyesore. By the time you get from the first day it was there to the point where they, cut the chain off and take it down to the police. That was my only concern, is the kind of the total length of time. But I'm okay with 15. I just was worried about residents.
So I guess the question is, do we want to treat bicycles and cars the same or differently? Yeah.
I think an argument can be made to treat bicycles differently, because people use their cars on a regular basis and they're more likely to know if something's going on with it. Bicycle is not necessarily a required piece of property.
I think 15 days is fair. Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to change one other thing too, just because the way it's written.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Dean, didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. Please go ahead.
No, I was going to say on the last sentence, one more change I was going to say is, after the police department shall seize it and auction it off. Oh, okay. I guess you just added off no sooner than 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say if you can say auction it off after 30 days.
Yeah, I wanted to put something on there because I don't want to make, 30 days is a holiday and we don't auction it off. What are we going to do? So obviously they're not going to be doing it right on the 30th day.
Yeah, no, that verbiage is fine.
Okay. Okay, staff recommendation is that the governing body review, discuss, amend, and/or adopt the proposed code amendments. So we're all okay with adopting both of these? Okay. Dean, do you want to state the motion?
The motion is what, do one at a time, right?
Okay, yes.
So the first one would be, let's see, where are we there?
I can open it up.
All right.
Wow, that 24 inches in Prince William County, that's
Well, I
like
think the
anything
motions are
goes.
already-
Yeah,
The
really.
motions as presented already were still good, right?
Well, the problem is,
Well,
I put
Oh,
code
yeah.
amendments,
Alright,
so
okay.
we'll have to separate it. Yeah.
It's too vague.
So let's see, the first one would be to move to approve the amendment to Article 1 of Chapter 20, Streets and Sidewalks of the Code of the City of Manassas, Park, Virginia, to regulate bicycle parking on sidewalks, paths, and trails, and within public right-of-way as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. And the next one, Dean?
Okay, I recommend that you move to amend Article 3, parking of Chapter 24, Traffic Code of the Code of the City of Manassas, Park, Virginia, to regulate parking distance from the curb or shoulder as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. And now we will go into closed session. Dean,
Oh,
you're
we have to
still-
do that eminent domain.
I beg
The
your pardon?
Mosby.
9F,
Mosby.
or 9I, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Next is, we are revisiting the Mosby Drive culvert replacement easement acquisition, previous public hearing held earlier in the meeting. Okay, any last questions or comments? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the attached resolution authorizing staff to proceed with acquisition of the necessary easements, including the use of eminent domain, if necessary, for the Mosby Drive culvert replacement project.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we can go into closed session. Okay.
Major report or no?
Nothing to report.
I was just pointing out that earlier, I said we were going under paragraph 7 and 8. It's actually paragraph 7 and 29. So
Okay.
when I read this out, you understand.
Donald, we would have the manager report after we come out and vote on the engagement of legal counsel.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I recommend the governing body go into closed meeting for consultation with the city attorney pertaining to probable litigation related to the city's use of eminent domain for the acquisition of property interests and the declaration of protective covenants and restrictions that was recorded against properties within Connor Center, and for the acquisition of Lot 1A Connor Center for the new city hall, public parking, and a public road, and discussion of the award of a contract for legal services with Brillia Hunley PC for city litigation matters, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the city, pursuant to paragraph 7 and 29 of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I
How's that?